Chapter 1. Firmament Star, Azure Dragon Domain, Black Heaven Sect. There was only one oil lamp in the dim room, and a handsome young man who looked to be 15 or 16 years old was lying on the bed. The young man was motionless, and only the slight rise and fall of his chest proved that he was still alive. "Where is this?" The young man's eyes slowly opened. He turned his head and looked around in confusion. Suddenly, his face showed a painful expression, and a large number of memories rushed out of his mind, attacking his brain. After a while, the young man lay on the bed, sweating profusely, panting heavily. His confused eyes gradually became clear. "I didn't expect this to happen to me." The young man smiled helplessly. After receiving the memories in his mind, he understood everything. The young man was called Chu Kuangren, an outer disciple of the Black Heaven sect. He was very popular in the outer sect because of his handsome appearance. However, the bad thing was his face. Because of this face, a true disciple's senior sister took a fancy to him and wanted to take him as her lover. Yes, she wanted to keep him. She also promised to promote him to the inner sect within 3 years. Although Chu Kuangren was an outer sect disciple, he was proud and did not want to use this method to achieve success, so he refused righteously. Unexpectedly, the senior sister became angry and beat him seriously. He lay in bed for 2 days and did not get better. "Since I'm already here, I might as well take things as they come. Since I've transmigrated into this person's body, I might as well find a way to survive," Chu Kuangren murmured. "Ding! Your cheat, Fantasy Roulette, has been received. As this is your first time using it, you have a chance to draw 10 consecutive lucky draws. Do you want to use it now?" A mechanical female voice sounded in his mind. Chu Kuangren was stunned for a moment. "Fantasy Roulette? Isn't this the cheat I downloaded before I traveled? Could it be that this is my golden finger?" Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Before he traveled, he was playing a Xianxia online game, and Fantasy Roulette was a cheat introduced to him by his roommate. He downloaded it with the mentality of trying it out, but who knew that he would travel before he could play? "Use it now," Chu Kuangren said in his heart. Very soon, a colorful lucky roulette appeared in front of Chu Kuangren. There were many slots on it. In the boxes were all kinds of rewards that sounded very scary. 9 Yang Divine Technique, Immortal Body, Yin and Yang Ring. The needle on the wheel spun rapidly. Congratulations to the host for drawing the legendary attribute, Banished Immortal Temperament. Congratulations, host. You have obtained a Starlight Array Spirit Gathering Array. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the Immortal Body Constitution. Congratulations, host. You've obtained the God Tier Divine Ability, Eye of Revelation. Congratulations, host. You have obtained the Starlight Cultivation Technique, Human Mountain Stamp. Congratulations to host for drawing a Starshine Medicinal Pill, Prolonging Life Pill. Congratulations to the host for drawing the legendary Constitution, Exquisite 9 Orifices Sword Heart. Congratulations, host. You have drawn a Starlight Item Treasure Map. Congratulations, host. You have drawn a legendary Featherman Warrior. Congratulations, host. You have drawn a legendary item, Universe Ring. Notifications continuously rang in Chu Kuangren's mind. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He didn't expect this cheat to be so powerful. The above items have been sent to the roulette space. Host, please take note and receive them. After the robotic female voice finished speaking, it sank back into silence. The roulette in front of Chu Kuangren disappeared as well. The Fantasy Roulette was a cheat that Chu Kuangren had downloaded before he transmigrated. It gave players a chance to draw a prize once a day. The prizes were divided into Iron, Silver, Gold, Diamond, Starlight, Legendary, God Tier, Supreme God, and Eternal. The 10 consecutive lucky draws were the privileges of a newbie. They had a 100% chance of drawing a Starlight or even a Starlight prize. Chu Kuangren opened the roulette space. It was an interface similar to a game's inventory. Looking at the dazzling array of prizes that he had just drawn, Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. "Extract the immortal body," Chu Kuangren said silently. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying force erupted in his body. This force swept through his limbs and bones, washing through his skin, bones, flesh, and even every cell. Chu Kuangren felt as if he had been thrown into a huge juicer. His body was constantly being crushed, reorganized, and crushed. F***ck me. The intense pain almost made Chu Kuangren faint on the spot, but there was a magical force in his mind that kept him awake. Fortunately, the pain didn't last long. A minute later, Chu Kuangren lay on the ground, his body drenched in sweat. This feeling is so F***king exciting. He got up and sat on a chair. His mind received information about the immortal body, and then he could not help but be amazed. Chu Kuangren channeled the spiritual power in his right hand, condensed it at his fingertips, and then hit his left palm. Suddenly, a bloody hole appeared on it. However, flesh began to grow on his palm, and it quickly healed. In the blink of an eye, it was as good as new. There was not even a scar on the wound. There are 6 realms of the immortal body. I'm only at the first realm, and I already have such an effect. My body that was seriously injured by Li Yao has also completely recovered. How terrifying will the next 5 realms be? Chu Kuangren smiled and looked at the roulette space. As for the rest of the prizes, what were their uses? Extract the Eye of Revelation. A glimmer of light flashed in Chu Kuangren's eyes. Upon closer inspection, there were countless Taoist runes flowing in his eyes. The glimmer disappeared, and his eyes returned to normal. The magical effects of the Eye of Revelation surged in his mind. Chu Kuangren nodded in satisfaction. The Eye of Revelation could see through all falsehoods in the world. It could also see through a living being's race, cultivation level, divine abilities, and other information. This was a god-tier prize, and it was not inferior to the immortal body. Extract the banished immortal aura. Chu Kuangren walked to the front of the bronze mirror in the room and looked at himself in the mirror. He felt that his body had suddenly gained an ethereal temperament. Coupled with his handsome face, he looked like an immortal who had descended from heaven. 1 word, handsome. 2 words, really F***king handsome. After he was done with his narcissism, Chu Kuangren looked at the remaining prizes in the roulette space with a thoughtful look. Besides the immortal body, the Eye of Revelation, and the banished immortal aura, the other prizes were more or less familiar to the original owner's memory. Especially the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. This was one of the top 10 physiques in the firmament star. It had not appeared for tens of thousands of years. Moreover, once this physique was awakened, it would definitely cause all sorts of phenomena, and the entire Black Heaven sect would be alerted. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while, then a hint of determination flashed across his eyes. Even if it's alerted, so what? The exquisite 9 orifices sword heart is a supreme Taoist physique, a supreme sky pride that all the major forces want. It's best if I can alert the higher-ups of the Black Heaven sect. This way, the resources of the Black Heaven sect will definitely be tilted to me. If I'm always afraid of the slightest thing, how can I set foot on the peak of cultivation in the future? I might as well find a place to farm. My name is Chu Kuangren. How can I not be crazy? Chu Kuangren grinned. Extract the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. Suddenly, an inexplicable force was added to his body. Although this physique transformation was also very painful, as if there were countless tiny needles shuttling through the blood vessels in his body, converging towards the heart. But it was much better than merging with the immortal body. The original owner was a person with a strong will, and after merging with the original owner's memory, Chu Kuangren naturally inherited this willpower. Just as Chu Kuangren extracted the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, corresponding phenomena also occurred in the outside world. Chapter 2. Inside the Black Heaven sect, thousands of swords howled. In the courtyard where Chu Kuangren was, a beam of light suddenly shot up into the sky. Countless Taoist runes surrounded it, and there were even bursts of Taoist sounds. In the beam of light, the runes intertwined and turned into a heart. This heart had 9 orifices, and every time it beat, sword chi shuttled back and forth. Amidst the thumping heartbeat, there was even the sound of metal clashing. What's going on? Such a phenomenon, could it be that some kind of Taoist physique has awakened? 9 orifices in the heart, containing sword qi. Could it be the legendary supreme Taoist physique, the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart? Hiss, this Taoist physique has not appeared for nearly 10,000 years. Why would it suddenly appear, and in the Black Heaven sect's territory? That direction is the outer sect yard. Could it be that the one who awakened this physique is an outer sect disciple? How is this possible? Within the Black Heaven sect, everyone from the upper echelon elders to the lower echelon disciples were shocked by this sudden phenomenon. As Chu Kuangren and the Sword Heart became more integrated, the power of the phenomenon continued to increase and spread out of the Black Heaven sect. In an instant, more than half of the strong cultivators in the Azure Dragon domain sensed it. In a magnificent city, the white-robed man sitting in a tall building suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the Black Heaven sect. This aura, it's the birth of a supreme Taoist physique. The supreme Taoist physique had only appeared a few times since ancient times. Any one of them had the potential to become an emperor. In the history of the firmament star, there were only a few emperor realm cultivators. That direction is the Black Heaven sect. Could it be that the Black Heaven sect is going to have a young emperor in this era? Interesting. The white-robed man chuckled and closed his eyes, no longer paying attention to it. In a dazzling hall, a domineering man sat on a throne, looking in the direction of the Black Heaven sect and murmured, "Supreme Taoist physique. I didn't expect another supreme Taoist physique to appear in this era. It really is the era of great competition. But no matter who it is, the throne of this era will belong to me. Whoever fights with me will die." In a tumbling sea of blood, there was an old man sitting on a blood-colored lotus. He sensed something and looked into the distance. His face suddenly sank. The aura of the supreme Taoist physique. This direction, could it be the Xianxia sect? Looks like I have to hurry up and hatch the spiritual blood Taoist fetus as soon as possible. That's the only way to fight for the throne of that generation. The competition is getting more and more intense. In the Black Heaven sect, as the power of the vision of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart grew stronger, the group of swordsmen could no longer control the swords in their hands. Countless swords flew out of their hands and turned into streams of light that flew towards Chu Kuangren. In the distance, there was a mountain peak filled with swords. Suddenly, the mountain peak rumbled and shook. One by one, the treasured swords rose into the air and flew towards where Chu Kuangren was. Damn, that's a sword from the mysterious Heaven Sword Mountain. The mysterious Heaven Sword Mountain is the treasure of my mysterious Heaven sect. It contains all the treasured swords and spells forged by the seniors of the mysterious Heaven sect. None of them are ordinary. Today, all these swords flew out by themselves. Look, that's the sacred weapon, the amethyst firmament sword. No, it's not just the amethyst firmament sword. There's also the green vine sword, the crimson drill sword, the dragon's roar sword, and Taya sword. These are all sage weapons. The Black Heaven sect specializes in swordsmanship. Disciples who join the sect must go to the Sword Mountain to choose a sword. Rumor has it that the Sword Mountain has 10 sacred weapons, and very few disciples can obtain its recognition. In this generation, only Taoist Nangong Huang has obtained the recognition of the Deep Abyss Rainbow Sword. But now, all these sacred weapons have flown out by themselves. It looks like they can't wait to recognize their own masters. This is unbelievable. Who is the master of this vision? The sacred weapons recognize their own masters? Terrifying. Countless swords hovered above the courtyard. It was a magnificent sight. Many figures came to the courtyard, and one of them, an old man with white eyebrows, said loudly, "Which disciple is in the courtyard? Please show yourself." With a creak, the door to the room opened. Chu Kuangren, who was wearing a white outer sect disciple uniform, slowly walked out. His handsome face, ethereal temperament, and the peerless treasured swords hovering around him made him look like a sword immortal. When everyone saw him, they could not take their eyes off him. Who is this person? He's so handsome. He's too handsome, and with such an ethereal temperament, I'd believe you if you say he's the reincarnation of some immortal. How can there be such an outstanding person in the outer sect? He's like Jade, master is unparalleled in the world. It's him, Chu Kuangren. No way, it's really Chu Kuangren. He was handsome in the past, but not to such an exaggerated extent. How did he change so much in just 2 days? Did he awaken the supreme Taoist physique? I heard that there was a successor senior sister who wanted to keep him as her mistress, but he rejected her. The senior sister was so angry that she severely injured him. He should be lying in bed right now. I didn't expect him to cause such a commotion. Wow, no wonder that true disciple's senior sister wanted to keep this person. If it were me, I would also want to keep him. Wake up, you're a man. The disciples were talking about it. Some were surprised, some were shocked, and some were obsessed. It was obvious that Chu Kuangren's banished immortal temperament had shocked many people. High up in the sky, a beautiful elder could not help but reveal a strange expression when she saw Chu Kuangren. Even her calm state of mind had a slight ripple. This kind of temperament and appearance, isn't it a little too against the rules? At this time, Chu Kuangren had completed the integration of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, and the vision above the courtyard had also disappeared. However, the countless swords were still hovering above him and did not disperse for a long time. Among them, a few of the swords were the most outstanding. Their bodies were flowing with light and the great Tao runes manifested, and they were also the closest to Chu Kuangren. Under the pressure of these swords, the other swords did not dare to get too close. Do they want to recognize me as their master? Chu Kuangren seemed to be able to perceive the thoughts of these swords and could not help but be surprised. Is the charm of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart so great? Or is it the effect of the sword heart and the banished immortal temperament? But no matter what, Chu Kuangren did not dare to act rashly now. These sacred weapons were the treasures of the Black Heaven sect. If they all recognized him as their master, what would the other disciples and elders think? He had just awakened his Taoist physique, and yet he could not wait to collect the sacred weapons. This kind of temperament could not be used in a big way. Chu Kuangren did not care about the sacred weapons around him. Instead, he walked straight to the white-browed elder and the others and bowed. Outer sect disciple Chu Kuangren greets the elders. The white-browed elder nodded in satisfaction. To be able to resist the temptation of the sacred weapons? Not bad, not bad, this kid has some temperament. Chu Kuangren saw the expression on the white-browed elder's face and immediately guessed the other party's thoughts. Heh, it's all a trick. Chu Kuangren, did you cause this vision? I think so. Chu Kuangren pretended to be hesitant. I think so? What do you mean? Elder, I was resting in the house today, but suddenly my body was in unbearable pain, as if I was being cut by 1,000 knives. Then, a beam of light came from my body, and then this happened. Chu Kuangren said. The matter of the fantasy roulette could not be exposed, so he could only temporarily pretend that he had suddenly awakened his Taoist physique. The white-browed elder appeared in front of Chu Kuangren in a flash, grabbed his arm, and injected a wave of spiritual energy to investigate. Chu Kuangren let the other party do as he pleased and did not dare to move. Chapter 3. Exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, supreme Taoist physique. As soon as these words came out, it was like a bomb falling into the crowd, causing a huge uproar. A group of elders ran to Chu Kuangren. It really is the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, this is great. Ha, God bless our Black Heaven sect. With this supreme Taoist physique, Black Heaven sect can compete for the throne for a lifetime. Among the 3,000 physiques, the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart can be ranked in the top 10. It is a supreme sword Tao physique, and our Black Heaven sect has a foothold in the world with sword Tao. Ha, if this is not God's will, then what is? Although this child is an outer disciple, he has awakened the supreme Taoist physique and must be trained vigorously. Why don't we make him a true disciple? How is a true disciple enough? He must be made a Taoist. Our Black Heaven sect has 9 Taoists, another one. Looking at the elders around him who were as happy as children, Chu Kuangren was slightly happy. Sure enough, Showing off his physique was the right way to get the best resources for himself. At this moment, the distant sword mountains suddenly shook. The swords hovering in the air flew back as if they had been summoned. The few sacred weapons reluctantly circled around Chu Kuangren a few times, but in the end, they still flew in the direction of the sword mountain. Chu Kuangren was stunned for a moment. Hey, don't go. You should at least leave one for me. You come and go as you please. Are you kidding me? Just a moment ago, you refused to acknowledge anyone but me, and now you've changed. Sword dregs. The sect leader has activated the sword mountain and retrieved the swords. The white-browed elder said, Bring this child to see me. A deep magnetic middle-aged voice came from afar. The white-browed elder smiled at Chu Kuangren and said, Come with me. Yes, elder. The white-browed elder flicked his sleeve, and an invisible force enveloped Chu Kuangren's body, causing him to involuntarily rise into the air. The few elders then brought Chu Kuangren along as they turned into a stream of light and dashed into the distance. Not long after, they arrived at a majestic palace. A middle-aged man in a white robe stood in this hall. The middle-aged man had a handsome face and white sideburns. He had a sage-like demeanor. He was the current sect leader of Black Heaven sect, Honorable Xianxia. Greetings, sect leader. A few elders stepped forward and bowed. Honorable Xianxia nodded slightly, then his gaze fell on Chu Kuangren. After sizing him up, a strange look appeared in his eyes. What a great supreme Taoist physique. It's indeed charming. Sect master is too kind. Heh, no need to be humble. I want to take you as my disciple. From now on, you will be the chief disciple of the Xiantian sect. Are you willing? Upon hearing this, not only was Chu Kuangren a little surprised, but the rest of the disciples were also shocked. They did not expect the sect leader to value Chu Kuangren so much. He was directly given the position of chief disciple. But thinking about it carefully, it made sense. This was the first supreme Taoist physique in the history of the Black Heaven sect. Disciple greets master. Chu Kuangren immediately bowed. He had no reason to refuse. Initially, he thought that it would be good enough if he could become a Taoist, but he did not expect Honorable Xianxia to be so generous as to make him everyone's eldest senior brother. It would be a waste not to have such a good opportunity. All right. Honorable Xianxia laughed and was very happy. Accepting a supreme Taoist physique as a disciple, when Chu Kuangren grew up in the future, he would also be honored. If Chu Kuangren became a great emperor, then he would be the emperor's tutor. How many people could have this honor since ancient times? From tomorrow onwards, you will follow me to cultivate. Yes. After becoming Honorable Xianxia's disciple, Chu Kuangren's treatment almost rose by leaps and bounds. He was directly changed from a small courtyard to a magnificent Taoist palace, and there were even a few personal maids to serve him. The next day, Chu Kuangren woke up from the soft bed and opened his eyes to look at the spacious room. It's not a dream. It seems that I really crossed over. He got up and called the fantasy roulette in his heart. Let's start today's lucky draw. In his field of vision, brilliance flowed and a huge roulette appeared. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Come in, Chu Kuangren said lightly. A graceful young girl with red lips and white teeth walked in with a basin of water. Master, it's time to wash up. The young girl looked at Chu Kuangren with a blush. She was also an outer sect disciple of the Black Heaven sect and was chosen to serve Chu Kuangren yesterday. She did not have any objections to this. After all, Chu Kuangren was not the same as before. He was the sect master's personal disciple and the Black Heaven sect's lead disciple. His status was even higher than the Taoists. For her, following Chu Kuangren was tantamount to reaching the sky in a single step. Not to mention this Master Chu is so handsome. The young girl secretly thought. What's your name? Chu Kuangren asked. My name is Liu Bing. Liu Bing, then I'll call you Lil Bing from now on. As long as you like it, Master. Chu Kuangren could be sure that Lil Bing did not see the fantasy roulette. It seemed that this roulette could not be seen by anyone except him. He silently said, draw, in his heart, and the roulette began to spin. Congratulations, host, for drawing the dark iron pill, soul-gathering pill. Soul-gathering pill? Dark iron at that? Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched twice. Compared to yesterday's 10 consecutive lucky draws, this soul-gathering pill was simply not worth mentioning. For the current him, he could have as many as he wanted. Forget it, it was just a question of probability. Chu Kuangren put the soul-gathering pill in the roulette space and ignored it for the time being. He washed his face and changed into a new set of clothes. Master looks really good in this set of clothes. Lil Bing looked at Chu Kuangren and could not help but reveal a look of amazement. He wore a jade crown on his head, a white wide-sleeved robe with a qilin pattern woven with golden silk, tassels hanging from his waist, and black boots on his feet. Coupled with his ethereal temperament, Chu Kuangren was no different from a banished immortal at this time. Lil Bing could not find any words to describe him. Not bad. Chu Kuangren smiled with satisfaction. After tidying up his appearance, Chu Kuangren went to find Honorable Xianxia. Black Heaven Sect, Longevity Hall. Honorable Xianxia sat on a futon. Chu Kuangren arrived and bowed slightly. Greetings, Honorable Master. Well, you're here. So, Honorable Xianxia pointed to the futon next to him. After Chu Kuangren sat down, he said, Kuangren, you used to be an outer sect disciple and could only learn the basic techniques of Black Heaven Sect. Now that you are the lead disciple, you are qualified to learn sage techniques. My Black Heaven Sect has 3 sage techniques. Heavenly Crescent Myrtle Sword Art can cultivate supreme sword chi. Golden Time Immemorial Art, after mastering, one's spiritual power will be endless, and there will be a golden light protecting the body, impenetrable by all techniques. There is also the Divine 9 Suns Art. The spiritual power is fierce and domineering. After mastering it, one can form the phenomenon of 9 suns in the sky and draw the power of the sun. I wonder which of these 3 techniques do you want to learn? I want to learn Heavenly Crescent Myrtle Sword Art. Chu Kuangren chose his target almost without any hesitation. He had the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, and his talent in swordsmanship was unparalleled. There was no need to forego what was near and seek what was far away. Among the 3 sage techniques, Heavenly Crescent Myrtle Sword Art was the most suitable for him. Well, your choice is as expected. Honorable Xianxia nodded, then took out a jade slip and handed it to Chu Kuangren. The Heavenly Crescent Myrtle Sword Art is recorded in here. How much you can comprehend will depend on your luck. If there is anything you don't understand during the cultivation process, don't hesitate to find me. Chapter 4. Towering Heaven Palace, Chu Kuangren's residence. After he returned, he began to study the jade scroll in his hand. With a slight thought, a large amount of information poured into his mind from the jade scroll. Chu Kuangren began to digest the information. After a while, he opened his eyes with a glint in them. TSK, the Heavenly Crescent Sword Art. This technique is definitely one of the best in the Azure Dragon domain. It didn't disappoint me. With the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, Chu Kuangren's aptitude in sword Dao was unparalleled. It did not take him long to understand the sword art. If it were anyone else, even the top sky prides, they would not be able to understand even 1/10 of it without 10 days to half a month. The realms of the world were divided into body forging, chi refinement, foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, paradise, battle monarch, honorable, ascension, sage manifestation, and emperor realm. The so-called sage techniques were techniques created by the sage manifestation realm cultivators, which could allow people to cultivate until the sage manifestation realm. There were not many sage manifestation realm cultivators in the entire firmament star. The value of sage techniques was imaginable. After understanding the sword art, Chu Kuangren began to extract the other rewards from the roulette space. First was the yin and yang ring that cultivators had to have. A normal yin and yang ring was only about a dozen cubic meters. Chu Kuangren's yin and yang ring was so wide that it seemed to be able to contain an entire ocean. It was almost boundless. As expected of a legendary item. There was also the human mountain stamp, which was a combat technique. With the fantasy roulette directly entering his mind, Chu Kuangren did not need to try to understand it. He understood it very thoroughly. All that was left was to cultivate. The human mountain stamp was not inferior to the heavenly crescent sword art. It might even be more mysterious, which surprised Chu Kuangren slightly. It seems that the starlight level techniques are equivalent to sage techniques, or even higher, close to an emperor scripture. The remaining few items, the Starlight Life Extension Pill and the Starlight Treasure Map, were temporarily placed into the Yin and Yang Ring. The remaining Starlight Spirit Gathering formation was integrated into the Towering Heaven Palace. Suddenly, the entire Taoist palace underwent a mysterious change, forming a force field that gathered a large amount of spiritual qi. Lil Bing, who was cultivating in the dormitory, opened her eyes abruptly, revealing a shocked expression. Such dense spiritual energy, how can this be? The density of spiritual energy was one of the keys to cultivation. The denser the spiritual energy, the easier it would be to cultivate. The mountain range where the Xianxia sect was located was a treasure land with abundant spiritual energy. However, Lil Bing now discovered that her cultivation in the Towering Heaven Palace was more than 10 times better than the outside world. How could she not be shocked? Could it be some kind of spirit gathering formation? I didn't expect the sect leader and the rest to value young masters so much that they set up an array in the Tao Palace to gather the heaven and earth spiritual qi for young masters' cultivation. Lil Bing murmured in a low voice. This was the only explanation he could come up with. However, to set up a spirit gathering formation of this level, even the Black Heaven sect would have to pay a hefty price. Moreover, the area covered by the formation could not be too large. It was estimated that it would only cover the area of the Towering Heaven Palace. After Lil Bing finished imagining things, she continued to cultivate happily. With this array, her cultivation environment was many times better than in the outer sect. In the room, Chu Kuangren had also noticed the changes in the Taoist palace after the soul-gathering formation was integrated. He smiled in satisfaction and looked at the last prize. A legendary winged human warrior. Winged human? Is it the race I remember? Chu Kuangren immediately extracted it. In front of him, a burst of silver-white light bloomed and formed a white light ball. A pair of white wings suddenly spread out, and the entire room was suddenly filled with a sacred and solemn aura. After the light dissipated, Chu Kuangren also saw the owner of the wings clearly and could not help but reveal a touch of amazement in his eyes. Pure white wings, silver-white long hair draped over her shoulders and fell on a silver pauldron. This was a beautiful and sacred woman. Her facial features were exquisite, and her light blue eyes were like the sea. A silver-white armor covered her curvaceous body, engraved with incomparably gorgeous golden patterns, giving off a heroic feeling. Angel? Chu Kuangren blinked. The woman in front of him indeed looked like the legendary angel from his previous life. However, in this world, they were called winged human. The winged human tribe was one of the races in the firmament star. Every winged human was a brave warrior who was good at fighting and also had outstanding cultivation talent. Mysterious Taoist runes flashed in Chu Kuangren's eyes. It was a direct divine ability, the Eye of Revelation. The winged human tribe, age set to 20 years old, cultivation base at the nascent soul realm, and also has a supreme Taoist physique, the Holy Radiant Physique. No wonder it's considered a legendary figure at the nascent soul realm. Golden words flashed on Chu Kuangren's retina like a stream of information, and he immediately understood the winged human warrior in front of him. What surprised him was that the other party actually had the Holy Radiant Physique. This was also a supreme Taoist physique. Although it was not as good as the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, it was still ranked in the top 20 of the 3,000 physiques. The winged human warrior walked in front of Chu Kuangren and knelt on one knee. She clenched her right fist and placed it on her chest, and said respectfully, "Greetings, master." The chilly voice was like a clear spring that refreshed the mind. Every prize drawn from the fantasy roulette, whether it was a person or an object, belonged to Chu Kuangren. It was not unusual for the winged human warrior to call him master. "Do you have a name?" "Master is my creator. Please bestow me a name, master." In her settings, Chu Kuangren was her creator, a supreme existence like the creator, and a person she respected from the bottom of her heart. Chu Kuangren's vanity was greatly satisfied to be called master by such a valiant young lady. Get up first. Yes. The winged human warrior stood up and stood respectfully at the side, her sapphire eyes shining with hope as she looked at Chu Kuangren. It was obvious that she was looking forward to Chu Kuangren giving her a name. Chu Kuangren pondered. He had read books, but it was a bit difficult for him to come up with a poetic name. Wings, blue eyes. From now on you'll be called Blue Feather. Chu Kuangren racked his brains and chose a name he was satisfied with. Blue Feather's eyes lit up. Thank you for the name, Master. Very good. It seemed that this lady was quite satisfied. Chu Kuangren smiled and said, From now on, you don't have to call me Master. Call me Master, it's more pleasing to the ear. He originally wanted Blue Feather to call him by his name, but he thought that it would be a bit inappropriate to call him Kuangren in front of others in the future. It would make him seem arrogant. It was better to call him Master. Yes, Master. Blue Feather nodded. By the way, can you change your clothes? Although it looks good, it's a bit too eye-catching, Chu Kuangren said. This was not the army, who would wear armor all day. Master, this light armor is my magic weapon. I don't have any other clothes to change into, Blue Feather said. That's easy, I'll ask Lil Bing to prepare something for you. Chu Kuangren took out a voice compass and asked Lil Bing to prepare clothes for Blue Feather. Master, what style do you want? What size? Lil Bing's confused voice came from the compass. Chapter 5. Towering Heaven Palace. Outside Chu Kuangren's room, Lil Bing was holding a set of women's clothing. Her mind was in a mess and she was confused. Why would this master want women's clothing for no reason? Moreover, it was a whole set. Did he have some special fetish? Master, I'm here to bring you some clothes. Lil Bing knocked on the door, and it opened with a creak. However, Lil Bing noticed that there was a woman in Chu Kuangren's room. It was a very beautiful woman. That kind of beauty had a sacred and inviolable feeling. Even Lil Bing could not help but feel a sense of inferiority when she saw her. Wait a minute. Why did this beauty seem to have a pair of wings? Thank you. Chu Kuangren took the clothes, then turned around and handed them to Lan Yu behind him. You can wear this for now. Lan Yu took the clothes. Yes. A white light flashed. The armor on Lan Yu's body instantly disappeared. A white, infinitely beautiful body instantly appeared in front of Chu Kuangren. Her snow-white skin dazzled his eyes. Chu Kuangren felt like his nose was about to bleed. Beside him, Lil Bing's mouth was wide open. What the F***ck? Was this woman so open? However, Lan Yu did not think much of it. She slowly changed her clothes in front of the two, looking calm and indifferent. In her mind, Chu Kuangren was her creator. Everything she had belonged to him, including this body. Well, you can change first. Chu Kuangren hurriedly closed the door and went outside to wait. Phew. This was too exciting. Although Lan Yu would not refuse him if he wanted to do anything to her, Chu Kuangren did not have such thoughts for now. Apart from some specific cultivation techniques, cultivators could retain their young body in the early stages to promote their cultivation to a certain extent. This was also one of the reasons why the original Chu Kuangren refused to be a mistress. Master, who is this lady? Lil Bing's head was full of question marks. It had only been a while, but why was there another person beside Master? It was a stunning beauty. If such a person was a disciple of the Black Heaven sect, she would have been famous long ago. She is my follower. No need to ask. Understood. Lil Bing nodded obediently. Chu Kuangren nodded in satisfaction. There were quite a few maids who were sent to serve him, but he only left Lil Bing behind. It was because he fancied that the other party was docile and obedient. He didn't mention anything that he shouldn't have asked. After a while, the door to the room opened. Lan Yu walked out and looked at her. Even though Lil Bing was a woman, she felt her heart palpitate. It was too beautiful. Her blue and white collared dress accentuated Lan Yu's graceful figure. Her long silver hair was casually tied behind her head. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade, and her eyebrows were like emerald feathers. Especially her clear and bright light blue eyes, It was as if there were resplendent stars hidden within, causing one to be intoxicated. Lan Yu stood there, elegant and refined, like a holy fairy. "Miss, you're so pretty." Lil Bing praised sincerely. Chu Kuangren nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad, but where are your wings?" He noticed that Lan Yu's wings had disappeared. "You don't seem to want me to attract too much attention, so I put it away. You can look at it any time you want." As Lan Yu spoke, her wings reappeared from her shoulder blades. "That's quite convenient." "All right, put it away." "Yes, master." Lil Bing, who was next to him, was amazed. She didn't expect this girl to have such an ability. For the next few days, Chu Kuangren cultivated in the Taoist palace. During this time, he didn't miss the daily lottery either. However, he didn't know if it was because of his bad luck, but all the items he got were black iron grade items. He threw them directly into his yin and yang ring. Towering Heaven Palace. Inside the room, Chu Kuangren sat cross-legged on the bed. A purple brilliance flowed around his body, giving off an incomparably sharp feeling. This was the sword chi formed from cultivating the heavenly crepe myrtle sword art. The heavenly crepe myrtle sword art was divided into 9 levels. They corresponded to the 9 cultivation realms from the chi cultivation realm to the divine manifestation realm. In 2 days, Chu Kuangren had cultivated to the peak of the 2nd level, which was the peak of the foundation establishment realm. He was only half a step away from the golden core realm. One should know that before this, he was only in the chi cultivation realm. But in 2 days, he had crossed a large realm and several small realms. If news of this cultivation speed were to spread, it would probably scare people to death. One of the reasons was his supreme Taoist physique, but the spirit-gathering array and the cultivation resources provided by the Black Heaven sect also contributed. At this speed, I can reach the Golden Core realm in less than 10 days. Most of the true disciples are also at this stage. Chu Kuangren murmured. At this time, the communication compass at his waist vibrated. "Master, true disciple Li Yao is here to visit." Lil Bing's voice came from the compass. "Li Yao?" Chu Kuangren raised his eyebrows slightly. He was very familiar with this name. It was the true disciple who wanted to take the original owner as her mistress. "Let's go and see." Outside the towering Heaven Palace, a woman in a gorgeous robe stood with a large bundle of thorns on her back. There were many disciples around her. "Look, that's the true disciple Li Yao. She's asking for forgiveness." "TSK, does Li Yao have any grudges with Chu Kuangren?" "You still don't know." Li Yao is a slut by nature. She keeps a bunch of gigolos in her palace. She took a liking to Chu Kuangren but was rejected by him. In a fit of rage, she beat Chu Kuangren until he severely injured him. So that's how it is. Who would have thought that Chu Kuangren would awaken the supreme Taoist physique? This Li Yao is afraid and specially came to ask for forgiveness. She's really shameless. Someone is coming out. Inside the towering Heaven Palace, Chu Kuangren slowly walked out. He was wearing a white wide-sleeved robe with qilin patterns and a jade crown on his head. His temperament was ethereal. As soon as he appeared, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. He's so handsome. It can't be, there's actually such a handsome man in this world. Is he the new lead elder senior brother? Oh my God, I think I'm in love. Li Yao, who was asking for forgiveness, looked up and saw Chu Kuangren. Originally, she had a trace of resentment towards Chu Kuangren. Because he suddenly awakened the supreme Taoist physique, she had no choice but to come and apologize. Otherwise, she would have a hard time in the future. But when she saw Chu Kuangren, the trace of resentment in her heart instantly dissipated. The other party's appearance was really too attractive. I saw him before that he was handsome, but now that he's the lead senior brother, he's even more handsome. Oh my God, I can't help it. Li Yao looked at Chu Kuangren obsessively. She even ignored the burning pain on her back. As soon as Chu Kuangren left the Taoist palace, he saw Li Yao at the bottom of the stairs. When he saw the other party's appearance of asking for forgiveness, he could not help but be slightly stunned. Li Yao has offended senior brother, so I'm here to ask for forgiveness. Li Yao directly knelt on the ground, holding a long whip in both hands, and said sincerely, "Senior brother, if you want to kill me or torture me, please do as you please." Chu Kuangren was even more confused. What was going on? According to the normal routine, shouldn't he find this Li Yao for revenge after he cultivated hard, defeat her, and trample on her? Chapter 6. Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched as he looked at the long whip and then at Li Yao's senior brother, quickly whip me, expression. Did Li Yao have any masochistic tendencies? To be honest, the original owner held a grudge against Li Yao. After all, she had seriously injured him and caused him to lie in bed for 2 days. Chu Kuangren had inherited the original owner's memory and did not have a good impression of Li Yao either. But in the end, he was not the original Chu Kuangren, and his hatred for Li Yao was not as strong as the original owner. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while, then raised his palm, channeled his spiritual power, and slapped out. This palm contained the unique domineering sword chi of the heavenly crescent sword art, and its power was enough to split mountains and split the earth. Bang! The palm landed directly on Li Yao's chest. Li Yao did not dodge and took the palm head-on. Her whole body was blasted 10 feet away on the spot, and blood spurted wildly. "In the past, I took a palm from you, and today you take a palm from me. From now on, the grudge is over. Go." Chu Kuangren withdrew his palm chi and said lightly. He did not show any mercy in the palm just now. From Li Yao's caved-in chest, he knew that at least 4 or 5 bones were broken. Fortunately, Li Yao's cultivation was not weak at the Golden Core realm. Otherwise, it was not impossible for this palm to kill her on the spot. Chu Kuangren felt that this should be enough. Not only did he avenge the original owner, but he also showed his magnanimity. "Thank you for not killing me, senior brother." Li Yao struggled to prop herself up, knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Chu Kuangren, then staggered away. "Master, you are too kind," Lil Bing said from the side. She had also heard of what Li Yao did to Chu Kuangren. Even if Chu Kuangren killed her on the spot, she would not be surprised. This is called kindness? Chu Kuangren shook his head in amusement. It seemed that this world was used to killing people, and he had to adapt to it in the future. Fortunately, with the original owner's memory, it should not be too difficult. Li Yao's matter was just a small interlude. Chu Kuangren continued to immerse himself in cultivation, but one day he heard that Li Yao had dismissed all the men she had collected. It was as if her temperament had changed after being hit by his palm. Chu Kuangren did not take this to heart. A few days later, within the towering heaven palace, a pillar of sword chi suddenly shot up into the sky. All the swords within 100 miles of the Taoist palace buzzed. The sudden phenomenon caused many people to be slightly stunned. It's this phenomenon again. The aura originated from the towering heaven palace. It's Chu Kuangren. Even if it's a supreme Taoist physique, it's still too terrifying. There's a vision every other day. How can people cultivate? Black Heaven Sect, inside the Longevity Hall. Honorable Xianxia suddenly opened his eyes and said in surprise, "This aura is that of a golden core." He actually broke through the golden core realm so quickly? Even with a supreme Taoist physique, this speed was still too fast. The phenomenon disappeared as quickly as it came. In the Taoist palace, Chu Kuangren retracted his aura and slowly opened his eyes. A purple ray of light flashed across his pupils. "I've finally broken through to the golden core realm," Chu Kuangren murmured. In less than 10 days, he'd successfully broken through from an ordinary chi refinement realm martial artist to the golden core realm, and this sort of advancement was almost inconceivable. "Kuangren, come and see me." At that moment, a voice rang in Chu Kuangren's ears. It was Honorable Xianxia. Chu Kuangren tidied up and went to the Longevity Hall. "Kuangren, you've broken through to the golden core realm?" Honorable Xianxia asked directly when he saw him. "Yes, Honorable Master." Honorable Xianxia was only guessing, but now that he heard Chu Kuangren personally admit it, his eyes could not help but show a touch of shock. He really broke through to the golden core realm. This speed was too fast. He was also one of the best cultivation geniuses in the world, but it took him nearly 2 years to break through from the chi refinement realm to the golden core realm. Chu Kuangren had not even reached the golden core realm for 10 days. This cultivation speed was simply too shocking. "Honorable Master, what's wrong with you?" Chu Kuangren asked when he saw Honorable Xianxi's dumbfounded look. Cough, cough. Honorable Xianxi recovered, coughed twice, and then said, "Not bad, but be careful not to be arrogant and impatient. Cultivation is like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't move forward, you will fall back. There are many cultivators who advance quickly in the early stages, but in the later stages, it's difficult to advance. Compared to speed, laying a good foundation is the most important." "I understand." Chu Kuangren nodded. He had a supreme Taoist physique and also cultivated sage techniques. Even if he did not deliberately build a foundation, his foundation was still the best among those in the same realm. "Since you've broken through to the Golden Core realm, go to Sword Mountain and find a sword yourself. You have the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. Even a sacred weapon will easily recognize you as its master, as long as you don't empty Sword Mountain." Honorable Xianqi chuckled. Then, Honorable Xianqi gave Chu Kuangren some pointers. Before returning to the Taoist palace, Chu Kuangren listened to Honorable Xianqi and went to Sword Mountain first, planning to find a suitable weapon there. Sword Mountain was a treasure of the Black Heaven sect that was close to an emperor weapon. There were countless treasured swords and even sacred weapons on it. Just by getting close, one could feel a kind of oppressive sword qi. Chu Kuangren came to the foot of Sword Mountain. Before he even stepped in, the Sword Mountain trembled. It seemed to be welcoming Chu Kuangren's arrival. This strange phenomenon made many disciples click their tongues in wonder and envy. Sword Mountain has not moved for tens of thousands of years, but because of Chu Kuangren, there have been many changes. The supreme Taoist physique really lives up to its name. He's Chu Kuangren, the new lead disciple. He's really extraordinary. Look at his appearance, this temperament. He's a dragon among men. From an outer sect disciple to the lead disciple, this kind of promotion speed is incredible. It's like reaching the sky in one step. Damn, there's someone more handsome than me in this world? Chu Kuangren was like the most dazzling moon in the night. No matter where he went, he was the most eye-catching existence. He was already handsome enough, and now with this banished immortal temperament, I guess there will be no peace no matter where he goes in the future. Chu Kuangren shook his head. This was more tiring than being a celebrity in his previous life. Chu Kuangren ignored the disciples along the way and walked all the way to the top of Sword Mountain. The closer he got to the top, the higher the level of the swords. There were all kinds of swords in front of him. Heavy swords, thin swords, broad swords, mother-child swords, flexible swords. Some were gorgeous, some were simple, and some were strangely shaped. The countless swords dazzled Chu Kuangren. Not only that, but he seemed to be able to feel the emotions of these swords. It was an indescribable and mysterious feeling. Every sword was conveying intimacy to him. This exquisite 9 orifices sword heart is really powerful. Just the ability to make all the swords in the world intimate is enough to make countless sword cultivators dream of it. Chu Kuangren could not help but say with some emotion. Some swordsmen pursued the realm of human sword unity, which required the body and the sword to be extremely compatible and mutually responsive. But Chu Kuangren could make all the swords naturally intimate. Human sword unity was like eating and drinking to him. It was too simple. At the top of Sword Mountain, there were 9 swords stuck in the blue stone. Every sword exuded an incomparably piercingly cold sword intent. Chapter 7. At the peak of Sword Mountain, 9 sacred swords were stabbed into the blue stone. The piercingly cold sword intent surrounded a radius of 1,000 feet. Only the 9 swords could stand within this area of 300 m. As for the other swords, they were unable to enter this area of 300 m, and it was like a domain of swords. 300 meters away from the sacred swords, a young man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes was staring at the 9 sacred swords. His eyes were burning with an uncontrollable desire. Now that I have broken through to the peak of the original level, I must obtain the sacred sword's approval. Prove that I, Murongxian, am not inferior to Nangong Huang. Murongxian was extremely smug. He looked as if he was determined to win. With a single step, he stepped into the range of the holy sword's sword intent. In an instant, the surrounding sword intent fiercely pressed down on his body. The holy sword's sword intent. Even if the holy sword was used for a test, the sword intent that had not been completely released was not something that ordinary cultivators could withstand. Murong Xian was already prepared for the pressure from the sword will. Spiritual power gushed out from the spiritual mound in his body and surrounded his body, resisting the sword will. Step by step, with firm steps, Murong Xian approached the sacred sword. The closer they got, the more tyrannical and terrifying the pressure of the sword intent became. Murong Xian's forehead was already covered in a fine layer of sweat when he was about 500 feet away from the sacred sword. He felt as if a huge mountain was pressing down on his body, and every step he took was extremely difficult. A few people were watching Murong Xian from high up in the sky. There were 4 men and 2 women. All of them were dressed in luxurious black robes. If a Black Heaven sect disciple were to see them, they would definitely recognize them as the Taoists of the Black Heaven sect. A Taoist was the most outstanding disciple of a cultivation orthodoxy. This was especially so for a Taoist of a sage orthodoxy like the Black Heaven sect, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years and had once produced a sage. Every single one of them was a peerless sky pride of the world. There was nothing wrong with calling him a Qilin's son. Do you guys think Murong Xian will be able to obtain the sacred sword's approval this time? A Taoist said with a playful smile. He has already failed nearly 10 times. I reckon this time is going to be quite dangerous, a Taoist said indifferently. That's not necessarily true. I heard that Murong Xian has already broken through to the complete nascent soul realm. Who knows, maybe he'll succeed this time. There is indeed such a chance. If he succeeds, Nangong Huang will have another opponent. The few of them discussed animatedly. Down below, Murong Xian suddenly let out a long cry. Heavenly Sun Sword Art. A large amount of spiritual power gushed out from Murong Xian's body. Extremely scorching sword energy erupted and formed rings of fire that surrounded Murong Xian's body, fighting against the holy sword will. Murong Xian felt his body lighten, and the pressure on him was greatly reduced. Supreme Law, Heavenly Sun Sword Art. His aura is even stronger than before. He really did break through to the peak of the original realm. Who knows, he might really be able to obtain the sacred sword this time. The Taoists in the sky clicked their tongues in wonder. Aside from the 3 sage techniques in the profound Heaven Holy Land, there were also some supreme techniques. These were things that only true inheritors and Taoists could cultivate. 40 zhang, 30 zhang, 20 zhang, 10 zhang. He was only 10 zhang away from the holy sword. Murong Xian's gaze was fixed on a crimson sacred sword. That was the sacred sword, Crimson Drill, which was also the target of his trip. Scarlet Drill was the most suitable sacred sword for him. Extreme yang and extreme toughness. Peerlessly domineering. Complementing his Crimson Sun Taoist physique, it could definitely double his combat strength. When that time came, he would not fear anyone except Nangong Huang and the 9 Taoists of the Black Heaven sect. Even among the younger generation of the Azure Dragon domain, other than a few monsters, he could do whatever he wanted. As he got closer to the sacred sword, the sword will's pressure became even more terrifying. Even a nascent soul cultivator might not be able to withstand it. However, Murong Xian was not an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. He was a peerless sky pride who had the rare Crimson Sun Taoist physique and cultivated a sage technique. His foundation and combat strength far surpassed cultivators of the same level. Divine 9 Suns Art. Murong Xian activated the spiritual power in his body to its limit. Behind him, 4 balls of spiritual power rose into the sky and turned into 4 dazzling suns, howling with terrifying heat waves. One of the 3 sage techniques of the Black Heaven sect, Divine 9 Suns Art. The Taoists' expressions changed slightly. Divine 9 Suns Art, for suns in the sky. This is the 4th stage, and judging by its power, it's probably going to break through to the 5th stage soon. Tisk, Murong Xian has the Crimson Sun Taoist physique, so he can cultivate this divine Nine Suns art much faster than other cultivators. It's also more powerful. If he gets his hands on Qi Lian, he might really be able to compete with Nangong Huang. At that moment, Murong Xian, who had activated the divine Nine Suns art, was crossing the last 10 feet. 90 feet, 80 feet, 70 feet, 60 feet. Finally, he arrived in front of Qi Lian. It was only a short distance of 10 feet, but it was several times more difficult for him to cross. However, the smile on his face did not diminish as he looked at Qi Lian with a fiery gaze. "Sacred sword, Qi Lian, submit to me." He reached out and grabbed the hilt of Qi Lian. Buzz buzz buzz. Qi Lian began to vibrate, and sword qi gushed out. Murong Xian had already expected this. The spiritual power in his body surged out to suppress the sword qi, and the four suns behind him became even more dazzling. This was the last stage. "Qi Lian, I have the Crimson Sun Taoist physique, and I cultivate the divine Nine Suns art. My attributes match yours, and I'm the most suitable sword master for you. Why do you resist? If you acknowledge me as your master, I'll make sure that your name shakes the world in the future. In fact, when I become the emperor in the future, it's not impossible for you to be reborn and become an emperor weapon. So, submit to me." As Murong Xian suppressed the sword qi, he tried his best to persuade Qi Lian. The sacred weapon had a spirit, and he hoped to gain its approval. Qi Lian seemed to be convinced as well, and it gradually withdrew its sword qi. Seeing this, Murong Xian was overjoyed. He pulled out Qi Lian in one go. Qi Lian, you won't regret this." In an instant, Murong Xian's aura was like a rainbow as he resonated with the sword. The Taoists were shocked. He actually succeeded. After Nangong Huang, another Taoist has obtained the sacred sword's approval. "Hey, someone's coming." Suddenly, the Taoists seemed to have noticed something. They looked into the distance and saw a person slowly walking toward them from a few thousand feet away from the sacred sword. That person wore a white, wide-sleeved Qilin robe and a jade crown on his head. He had an ethereal aura, and wherever he passed, the surrounding swords would buzz and tremble. The swords seemed to be greeting their king, their god. Who is this person? His every movement seems to contain some kind of Taoist rhyme. He's like a banished immortal. He's too extraordinary. And what's up with those swords? Why do I feel like these swords are greeting this person? Isn't this a little unbelievable? I've heard of this person. He's the new lead disciple. Lead disciple? Isn't that our senior brother? The Taoists looked at each other, then stared straight at the newcomer. Meanwhile, Murong Xian was holding Qi Lian with a face full of excitement. Although Qi Lian had not completely recognized him as its master, and he had only temporarily obtained the right to use the sacred sword, as long as he nurtured it well and improved his cultivation in the future, he would definitely be able to use Qi Lian completely. Just as Murong Xian was fantasizing about the future when he wielded Qi Lian and slaughtered everything in his path, the sword suddenly trembled again. No, it was not just Qi Lian. The other sacred swords also trembled in unison. It was as if they were greeting someone excitedly. What's going on? Murong Xian frowned slightly. It was his first time seeing such a situation. He sensed something and turned to look at Chu Kuangren, who was slowly walking over. Even he could not help but reveal a hint of surprise in his eyes. Chapter 8. A disciple here to choose a sword? Murong Xian looked at Chu Kuangren and murmured. For some reason, he had a feeling that the movement of the sacred swords was because of this person. Coupled with his extraordinary temperament, he could not help but look at him a few more times. His eyes revealed a bit of seriousness and curiosity. Chu Kuangren was already within 100 feet of the sacred swords. The sword intent domain had already enveloped his body. Surprisingly, these sword intents did not affect him at all. Like a spring breeze, it made him feel a bit comfortable. Chu Kuangren approached step by step and walked towards the sacred swords. 100 feet was more than 300 meters. After a while, Chu Kuangren walked more than half. Murong Xian held Crimson Drill and could not help but widen his eyes. What was going on? He had a hard time walking through the sword-intent domain, but the person in front of him was extremely relaxed, as if he was taking a stroll. The difference was too big. Murong Xian looked at the other sacred swords. He found that these sacred swords were trembling even more violently. They were very excited, just like humans. F***ck were these sacred swords deliberately giving him a chance. This absurd thought suddenly popped into Murong Xian's mind. The sacred swords had been in Sword Mountain for so many years, and there were countless cultivators who had been recognized by them. However, the sacred swords had never weakened their sword intent in the slightest. They treated all cultivators equally. But now they were giving Chu Kuangren a chance? No, that's impossible. Murong Xian swallowed, feeling a little incredulous. The Taoists in the sky were also stunned. I heard that this person has the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart and a supreme Taoist physique. When he awakened, all the swords in Sword Mountain went to worship him. I didn't believe this rumor at first, but it seems that it is very likely to be true. **ck, is the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart that unreasonable? The supreme Taoist physique is awesome. Chu Kuangren easily passed through the 1,000-feet sword intent domain. The first thing he did was to glance at Murong Xian, and when he did so, he narrowed his eyes slightly. There was no other way. Wasn't it dazzling to see a few small solar lights? He nodded slightly at him. Hello, junior brother. Junior brother? Murong Xian was a little stunned. He was a dignified Taoist, second only to the elders and sect master in Black Heaven sect. No one had ever called him junior brother. Do you know who I am? Murong Xian's expression turned cold. Yes, Taoist Murong Xian. Chu Kuangren nodded. He had seen him a few times before, but at that time, he did not even notice him, an outer sect disciple. Since you know, how dare you call me that? Because I'm the newly promoted lead disciple, Chu Kuangren. You should address me as senior brother, Chu Kuangren said calmly. Then, he looked at the holy swords on the blue stone. As if they had sensed Chu Kuangren's gaze, a few sacred swords flew out from the blue stone and came to his side. Even the crimson drill sword that Murong Xian had painstakingly obtained trembled, broke free from Murong Xian's hand, and flew towards Chu Kuangren. The 9 sacred swords hovered around Chu Kuangren, radiating with dazzling sword rays. Lines of Taoist runes circulated around the swords, making it look incredibly beautiful. How could this be? Murong Xian's face was filled with disbelief. It wasn't easy for him to subdue the holy sword, and he hadn't even gotten the chance to warm it up, but it was already running in front of someone to stroke its hair? That's right, these few sacred swords gave Murong Xian the feeling that they were stroking their hair, hoping to attract Chu Kuangren's attention. If these sacred swords could speak, then they must be shouting, "Choose me," or "Choose me quickly right now." The few Taoists in the sky were also stunned. This is too exaggerated. Are these still the sacred swords we know? F***c, does even the sacred swords look at one's face? In their understanding, the sacred swords were high above and inviolable. They were indifferent to anyone, even the Black Heaven sect's sect master. But now, they were all around Chu Kuangren, like peacocks seeking a mate, showing off their beauty and brilliance with all their might. Murong Xian's expression was uncertain, and he looked indignant. **ck, so what if he was handsome? He had painstakingly cultivated and finally managed to move the sacred sword Crimson Drill Sword. But now, when he saw Chu Kuangren, he immediately ran over to please him. All his efforts seemed to be a joke. What he had been pursuing was easily obtained by Chu Kuangren. Thinking of this, Murong Xian's Taoist heart was almost unstable. Not to mention him, the few Taoists in the sky were not much better. However, Chu Kuangren had no intention of taking care of the Taoists' emotions at this time. He looked at the 9 sacred swords with a somewhat conflicted expression. Which one should he choose? Take them all? What a joke, his honorable master would beat him to death. Besides, he was not that greedy. Chu Kuangren was conflicted. Unbeknownst to him, his conflicted expression fell into the eyes of the Taoists. These were sacred swords. Most cultivators in the world had probably not even seen them, But Chu Kuangren was conflicted about which one to choose. It's really infuriating to compare people. One of the Taoists smiled helplessly. After a while, Chu Kuangren's gaze fell on a sacred sword that was as white as jade, crystal clear, and carved with fine patterns. As if sensing that Chu Kuangren was looking at it, the white sacred sword became even more excited. The brilliance on its body circulated, and countless runes appeared. The other sacred swords were anxious and constantly released their sword intent. They even joined forces to suppress the white sacred sword. It was as if they wanted to take the opportunity to show off their strength. However, Chu Kuangren's gaze was still on the white sacred sword. He stretched out his hand and connected with the white sacred sword. Come. Whoosh! The white sacred sword instantly flew into Chu Kuangren's palm and obediently restrained its sword intent, for fear of hurting Chu Kuangren in the slightest. Chu Kuangren's fingers stroked the white sacred sword's blade, which was as gentle as a white jade sculpture. It was a very beautiful sword, so beautiful that people would think that it was actually an ornament. However, Chu Kuangren could feel the boundless sharp sword intent contained in this sword, as if it could tear the sky and earth apart. On the edge of the sword, two small words were carved. Descendant Self. Chu Kuangren read it out, and the sacred sword Descendant Self in his hand also trembled twice, as if responding. Chu Kuangren smiled. It's you. As soon as he said that, the other sacred swords continued to release their sword intent, as if they wanted Chu Kuangren to change his mind. However, Chu Kuangren had already chosen Descendant Self. The power of these sacred swords was similar, and Descendant Self was the most attractive. Which one should he choose if not this one? Alright, let's go back. Chu Kuangren looked at the other sacred swords and waved his hand. Seeing that he had made up his mind, the other sacred swords could not do anything no matter how unwilling they were. They could only, dejectedly, stab into the blue stone. The crimson drill returned to Murong Xian's hand. However, at this moment, Murong Xian did not feel happy. He felt that he was just a spare tire. If Chu Kuangren did not want it, then it would be his turn. This kind of feeling made him feel extremely uncomfortable, and he felt extremely aggrieved. You're the newly promoted lead disciple, Chu Kuangren. Murong Xian held the crimson drill tightly and said, Yes, that's me. Very well, I heard that the newly promoted lead disciple has a supreme Taoist physique. Today, I would like to experience it. Please. Murong Xian said lightly. Chapter 9. This was a challenge. As Chu Kuangren stared at Murong Xian, mysterious runes flashed across the depths of his eyes as he activated his Eye of Revelation. Murong Xian, Crimson Sun Taoist Physique, Nascent Soul Realm, Sage Technique, Divine Nine Suns Technique, Supreme Technique, Heavenly Sun Sword Technique. A series of messages flashed past Chu Kuangren's vision. The Crimson Sun Taoist Physique was one of the 3,000 physiques. Although it was far from being comparable to the exquisite Nine Orifices Sword Heart, it was still extraordinary. No matter which orthodoxy he was in, he would be a proud son of heaven. He even cultivated sage techniques and paragon techniques. Murong Xian's combat power definitely surpassed cultivators of the same level as him. Heh, I am only in the Golden Elixir realm, while you are in the peak original level. You have the nerve to challenge me? Do you have any shame? Chu Kuangren smiled and said, How do you know my cultivation? Murong Xian was slightly taken aback. But after that, he did not take it to heart. Although the news of him breaking through to the peak of the nascent soul stage had not spread, there were still some people who knew about it. It was not impossible for Chu Kuangren to have heard about it from someone else. If you are afraid, I can suppress my cultivation and fight you. There's no need for that. Chu Kuangren shook his head. I'm afraid that you'll lose too miserably when the time comes. It's better if you give it your all. Humph, arrogant. Murong Xian snorted coldly and placed the crimson drill sword aside. He had yet to nurture this sword, and judging from its attitude towards Chu Kuangren just now, it was unlikely that it would help him deal with his opponent. It wasn't easy for him to obtain this sword, but he couldn't use it against his enemy. Heavenly Sun Sword Art. Murong Xian used his finger as a sword and mobilized the spiritual energy of the spiritual ruins in his body. He slashed the air with his finger and a large amount of spiritual energy surged out, condensing into a huge ring of fire that spiraled out. Scorching heat waves surged, seeming as if they could incinerate the world. Chu Kuangren could see that the power of his opponent's move had not reached the level of the nascent soul realm. It was obvious that his opponent was consciously suppressing his cultivation base. However, this power was not something an ordinary golden core cultivator could withstand. Fortunately, Chu Kuangren was no ordinary cultivator. He did not use the Kuan Wu sacred sword. Instead, he used his fingers as a sword. Thousand Blades Art. Rays of purple sword chi appeared, emanating a domineering aura. The two forces collided in the void and exploded into a terrifying shockwave. The powerful impact swept towards the two of them, but the two of them did not move an inch. Thousand Blades Art? Is this a top-grade outer sect technique? Murong Xian's face was filled with bewilderment. The cultivation techniques of the world were divided into 3 grades: low, medium, and high. Above them were supreme techniques, saint techniques, and imperial scriptures. His heavenly sun sword art was a supreme technique, but Chu Kuangren's thousand blade sword art was merely a top-tier technique, yet it was able to fight on par with him. That's right, it is indeed the thousand blades art, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The Taoists in the sky were also very surprised to see this. A high-grade wondrous technique is on par with a supreme technique? Am I seeing things? Is this really the thousand-edged sword art? It's the thousand-edged sword art. He has already cultivated it to perfection. But even so, it's a little scary to be able to compete with the heavenly sun sword art. Could it be the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart? That's right. It's rumored that the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart can easily control the myriad of sword principles in the world, and it can unleash power far beyond what it should be. Now it seems that the rumor is true. A top-tier technique was on par with a supreme technique, and the user was a golden core and a nascent soul. Not many people would believe this if it was spread out. But now it had happened in front of them. The Taoists were overwhelmed with emotions. They also somewhat understood why the higher-ups had made Chu Kuangren the lead disciple. Again, Murong Xian raised his eyebrows. Unwilling to admit defeat, he continued to mobilize his spiritual power, and one ring of fire after another slashed towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren stood still. As he raised his hand, purple sword chi circled around him, cutting down the flying rings of fire one by one. He was calm. The unique overbearing sword chi of the heavenly crepe myrtle sword art, coupled with the support of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, gave Chu Kuangren an unparalleled combat strength even though he was only in the golden core realm. It was even close to the nascent soul realm. Chu Kuangren casually cut down a ring of fire, then shook his head and said, "Use your full strength. You're no match for me like this." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the spiritual power on Murong Xian's body skyrocketed. Crimson flames surged violently, intertwining in the void to form a rising crimson sun. The scorching temperature made people feel like they were in a furnace. Oh, a Taoist physique transformation. Chu Kuangren looked at the scene in front of him with interest. Transformations were one of the thousands of techniques. Most of the cultivators in the world who could cultivate transformations were extraordinarily talented cultivators. However, there was a type of person who was born with a unique transformation, and that was the Taoist physique cultivator. Murong Xian had the Crimson Sun physique. This Crimson Sun was his Crimson Sun transformation. When the Taoist physique transformation appeared, Murong Xian's aura skyrocketed. When he used the heavenly sun sword art again, the power was no longer the same as before. The originally yellow ring of fire was dyed with a layer of bright crimson. Both the temperature and the power were raised to a higher level. Wherever the ring of fire passed, the ground cracked and the earth was scorched black. Just in time, let's try this move. Chu Kuangren stood where he was, his black hair flying and his wide-sleeved white robe fluttering. Then, a terrifying and peerless aura erupted from his body. Taoist rhymes circulated, as if a god was quietly awakening. The pupils of the Taoists in the sky suddenly shrank. They actually felt a sense of threat from Chu Kuangren. After all, the other party was only in the Golden Core realm. And all of them were nascent soul realm cultivators. They stared at Chu Kuangren without blinking. They saw him take a deep breath, and the surrounding dark yellow aura converged towards him, revealing a vast and boundless aura. That's Earth Qi. He's actually mobilizing Earth Qi. The Taoists were shocked. The world's spiritual qi was also divided into attributes, such as fire, ice, wind, and so on. Earth qi was also one of them. It existed in the mountains, rivers, and veins. It was endless, but it was extremely difficult for cultivators to mobilize and use it. But now, Chu Kuangren was mobilizing Earth qi. What kind of technique is he cultivating? A Taoist exclaimed, his face full of shock. Chu Kuangren pinched a mysterious seal with his hand, and the earth qi condensed into a primordial sacred mountain. When the ring of fire was about to sweep over, his hands pushed forward. Human mountain stamp. The primordial sacred mountain made of earth qi suddenly shook, and the terrifying and peerless power seemed to be able to push through everything, suppressing heaven and earth. In a loud bang, the crimson ring of fire was smashed into a pile of sparks on the spot. The primordial sacred mountain was like a hot knife through butter, heading straight for Murong Xian. With a loud bang, the Crimson Sun avatar was smashed on the spot, and Murong Xian himself directly vomited blood and flew hundreds of feet away. The Taoists were dumbfounded. On the other hand, Chu Kuangren stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes indifferent. He was not surprised by this scene. The human mountain stamp was a starlight grade technique, and if converted to firmament stars techniques, it was infinitely close to an emperor's scripture. Sage techniques were also divided into different grades, and the human mountain stamp was the top sage technique, even more exquisite than the heavenly crescent sword art. Chu Kuangren had only cultivated a little bit of the human mountain stamp, and he could condense earth qi into a primordial sacred mountain to fight against the enemy. When it is truly mastered, I will be the sacred mountain, and I will suppress everything. This is definitely a sage technique. It's a sage technique that is completely used for attacking. My God, he has mastered an offensive sage technique. And I have a feeling that this may not be an ordinary sage technique. It's very likely to be a great sage technique, or even a sage ruler technique. Sage ruler technique? Don't joke around, it's impossible. There are only a few sage ruler techniques in the entire firmament star. How could he have one? That's true. Chapter 10. Damn it. Murong Xian, who had been blown away by the human mountain stamp, slowly stood up from the ground. His face was a little pale, and his hair was disheveled. He stared at Chu Kuangren, who was not far away, and the anger in his eyes was so intense that it was almost about to spill out. He was so angry that his face was twitching. He was a Taoist, a nascent soul realm cultivator, but he was beaten by a golden core cultivator in front of the other Taoists. If he did not get back at him today, how could he establish his dignity in front of others in the future? Chu Kuangren, I underestimated you. Didn't you want me to go all out? Fine. Then I'll let you see how big the gap between a golden core and a nascent soul is. Murong Xian no longer suppressed his cultivation. The spiritual power in the spiritual ruin in his body was fully activated, and the surging spiritual power poured out and turned into flames. The red sun rose into the sky, and the Taoist physique transformation opened again. Not only that, but the spiritual power flames also turned into 4 golden suns. It formed the 5 suns transformation. An unparalleled pressure covered this part of the world, and the scorching heat directly caused the ground to crack and the moisture in the air to rapidly evaporate. A radius of 1,000 feet had turned into a scorching hell. One was a unique Taoist physique transformation, and the other was a transformation brought about by cultivating the divine 9 suns art. With the addition of the 2 great transformations and Murong Xian's own nascent soul realm cultivation, his aura was incomparably terrifying. Endless streams of flames circled around Murong Xian's body. The light from the flames illuminated his face, making him look like a god who controlled the sun. Facing Murong Xian, who had just advanced to the Golden Core realm, Chu Kuangren felt the pressure. No matter what, the gap between the two was still too big. One had just stepped into the Golden Core realm, and the other was a nascent soul realm cultivator. No matter who it was, this was a crushing battle. I'm afraid I can't stop this person even with the human mountain stamp, but in addition to the human mountain stamp, I still have the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. Chu Kuangren's eyes swallowed and spat out a purple sword light. He took a step forward, and his body was surrounded by brilliance and Taoist runes. The swords around him buzzed, and boundless sword chi gathered towards Chu Kuangren. A faint purple divine sword shadow slowly rose from Chu Kuangren's body and floated above his head. The purple divine sword was 90 feet long and had 9 small holes on its body. Countless mysterious runes were shuttling back and forth in these small holes. For a time, the entire sword mountain shook. Countless swords buzzed. The heavenly Tao sword. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. The exquisite 9 orifices sword body had 3 great anomalies. The sword of heavenly Tao was one of them. At this moment, he had a feeling that so long as he was willing, all the swords on this entire mountain could be used by him. Zhang Xian willed. Suddenly, all the swords stuck in the mountain, including the holy swords, rose into the air and surrounded the sword of heaven. Boundless sword pressure shrouded heaven and earth. Under such pressure, Chu Kuangren did not even need to lift a finger. With just a thought, the 5 blazing suns above Murong Xian's head exploded on the spot. Not only that, but the boundless coercion also landed on Murong Xian's body. He could not even hold on for a second and was instantly pressed to the ground. What? This is impossible. Murong Xian's pupils shrank and his face was full of disbelief. He cultivated a sage technique, he had a Taoist physique transformation, and he was a perfected nascent soul cultivator. Yet, he was suppressed by Chu Kuangren in an instant. And Chu Kuangren was just a golden core cultivator. Was the supreme Taoist physique really that terrifying? It was not just Murong Xian. The other Taoists also felt a trace of fear in their hearts. If a mere golden core cultivator had such combat power, then how terrifying would Chu Kuangren's Taoist physique transformation be when he ascended to the nascent soul realm and reached the paradise realm? In the distance, several Xiantian sect elders saw everything that happened at Sword Mountain. The supreme Taoist physique is indeed terrifying. This is a little too exaggerated. Murong Xian has a perfected nascent soul cultivation base and a sage technique. How could he be defeated so badly? It's not exaggerated. The white-browed old man smiled and said, "Look at where you are. This is Sword Mountain, the world of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. With the sword intent of countless swords on Sword Mountain, suppressing a perfected nascent soul cultivator is a piece of cake." The others came to a realization, and one of them said, "That makes sense. Chu Kuangren's cultivation level is still low, and the power of his transformation is far from complete. If his cultivation level is higher, not to mention a nascent soul cultivator, even an honorable cultivator would be suppressed in the Sword Mountain battle. Not bad, not bad. This is the horror of the supreme Taoist physique. With this person, our Black Heaven sect can compete for the throne of this world. Should we stop Chu Kuangren?" At this time, an elder said with some worry, "After all, he is young and impetuous. What if he kills Murong Xian?" After all, Murong Xian was a Taoist. He was one of the top sky prides in the Black Heaven sect. The white-browed old man pondered for a moment. "Let's wait and see." On Sword Mountain, the sword of the heavens hovered above Chu Kuangren's head. Thousands of sword chi circled around him, and with the help of countless sword intents, he looked like a supreme sword god. He slowly walked in front of Murong Xian, stood with his hands behind his back, and looked down at him. He said in an indifferent tone, "Do you surrender?" "No, I don't. You used the Sword Mountain sword intent to suppress me. I don't surrender." Murong Xian gritted his teeth and said. Chu Kuangren was amused. "You're a perfected nascent soul cultivator, And you dare say that I used the Sword Mountain sword intent to deal with a golden core cultivator like me? Then why don't you tell me why I can use the Sword Mountain sword intent? Nonsense, it's because you have a supreme Taoist physique. Isn't that right? I have a Taoist physique, so I can use the Sword Mountain sword intent. This is also my ability. Now, let me ask you again, do you surrender? Chu Kuangren asked again, and the sword intent pressure suddenly increased. The ground Murong Xian was standing on suddenly caved in. He felt like a mountain was pressing on his body, and it was difficult for him to even move a finger. Do you dare to kill me? Oh, let's see if I dare. The sword intent pressure increased again. The bones in Murong Xian's body creaked as if they were about to shatter. I have a supreme Taoist physique, and I'm the sect leader's disciple. Believe it or not, if I kill you, I'll be scolded and confined for a few days at most. Chu Kuangren said calmly. There were not many people who had a supreme Taoist physique throughout the ages. Although the Crimson Sun Taoist physique was precious, it was far from the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. Even if Chu Kuangren killed Murong Xian, no one would do anything to him because the Black Heaven sect needed him to fight for the throne of this world. Once it was done, the Black Heaven sect would achieve unprecedented glory. Compared to that, Murong Xian was nothing. Murong Xian was not an idiot. He knew that Chu Kuangren was speaking the truth, so he quickly said, I surrender, I surrender. You're not convinced? No, I'm convinced. I'm really convinced. Oh, call me senior brother twice. Chu Kuangren said playfully. Murong Xian could not help but cry. What else could he do? Call him that. Elder senior brother, Murong Xian greets you. Good boy. Chu Kuangren smiled faintly. Then, with a thought, he dispersed the sword intent pressure. Murong Xian felt his body relax, as if he had escaped from death. He lay on the ground, panting, his chest rising and falling. Then, Chu Kuangren looked at the other Taoists in the sky and said with a smile, Junior brothers and sisters, if you're dissatisfied, you can come down and fight. I'll accompany you to the end. The few of them looked at each other and then descended from the Sword Mountain. Senior brother, you must be joking. Why would we be dissatisfied? Rumor has it that senior brother is very graceful. Seeing you today, you really live up to your reputation. I admire you so much. To be honest, senior brother, I've admired you for a long time. A few of the Taoists wore smiles on their faces, looking very respectful. What else could they do? Chapter 11. Chu Kuangren retracted the Sword of the Heavens transformation after he had demonstrated his might. The swords of the Sword Mountain returned to their original positions, and the sword intent domineering aura dissipated as well. Murong Xian breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Chu Kuangren in awe. He was really a little scared. A nascent soul cultivator was suppressed by a single thought. Although part of it was due to the Sword Mountain, it also showed how terrifying and powerful Chu Kuangren's exquisite 9 orifices sword heart was. Everyone, feel free to drop by my Taoist palace if you have the time. I still need to return to nurture the sacred sword, so I'll have to excuse myself, Chu Kuangren said. With a wave of his hand, the Kunwu sacred sword appeared in his hand. With a thought, the sacred sword took the initiative to merge with the spiritual ruin in his body. The spiritual ruins were the source of a cultivator's spirit power. It was also the place where the sacred sword was nurtured. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly at the Taoists, then turned and left. It was already evening when he returned to the towering Heaven Palace. The news of Chu Kuangren suppressing Murong Xian had also begun to spread within the Black Heaven sect. After all, the transformations of their battle were not concealed at all. I didn't expect Chu Kuangren to be this powerful. Even Taoist Murong Xian was suppressed by him. Wasn't he just an outer sect disciple before this? Even if it's a supreme Taoist body, his cultivation speed is still too fast. He has a supreme Taoist physique, so it's only normal for the sect to do everything they can to support him. I'm afraid Chu Kuangren will soar into the sky in the future. Rumor has it that when he fought with Murong Xian, the Taoist, he was able to condense the sword will of the Sword Mountain for his own use. His combat power is unimaginably strong. I saw that phenomenon too. This person has the potential to become a young emperor. If the previous Chu Kuangren was known throughout the Black Heaven sect because of his talent, the current Chu Kuangren was able to intimidate everyone with his strength. Oh, nascent soul realm cultivation experience card? Chu Kuangren looked at the prize that he had drawn today and could not help but reveal a surprised expression. Then he let out a gratified smile. Finally, a decent prize. Ever since Chu Kuangren transmigrated, apart from the first 10 consecutive lucky draws, the rest of the items he had drawn were all dark iron grade items. Today, he finally drew a silver-level nascent soul cultivation base experience card. Young Master Murong Xian Jun Yi and the other Taoists have come to visit. Lil Bing suddenly sent a message. Got it? Take them to the main hall to wait. Maniac Chu said. He stretched, got up, and dressed neatly. When he walked out of the door, he saw Lan Yu in a blue and white dress. When she saw Chu Kuangren, she stepped forward and bowed slightly. Young Master. Come with me to meet those Taoists. In the main hall of the Towering Heaven Palace. Murong Xian, Jun Yi, Qin Wushuang, Zhao Linglong, and Zhuahan, a total of 5 Taoists came to visit. As soon as they stepped into the Holy Ji Palace, they felt that something was amiss. The spiritual qi here was too dense, and it shocked them. One had to know that the place they lived in was already one of the few blessed grotto heavens in the Black Heaven sect, but it was still far from being comparable to the Towering Heaven Palace. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Eldest senior brother's residence is indeed extraordinary. The sect really values eldest senior brother very much, to actually give such a palace to eldest senior brother. Even the sect leader can only live like this. Cultivating here is 10 times more efficient than cultivating in the outside world. Murong Xian and the others clicked their tongues in wonder. A white-clothed girl walked up. Taoists, young master will be here soon. I have already prepared tea for you, please wait a moment. Lil Bing bowed and said. Taoist Junie smiled and said, Thank you, little sister. You're welcome, Taoist. Lil Bing said, feeling flattered. She was just an outer sect disciple before, and she could only watch from afar as the true disciples were surrounded by people like stars around the moon. Not to mention the Taoists. But now, a Taoist actually called her little sister. It was like a dream. Jun Yi smiled and did not ignore Lil Bing just because she was an outer sect disciple. Instead, they chatted casually. When the Taoists came in, they had observed that there were no other maids or servants in the huge Holy Ji Palace except for Lil Bing. Now everyone knew that Chu Kuangren was the Black Heaven sect's chief disciple and the sect's favorite. His future achievements would definitely be extraordinary. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs rise to heaven. How could they offend the only maid by his side? Building a good relationship was the right solution. The Taoists sat in the main hall and chatted. Suddenly, 2 figures came together from outside the hall. They looked over and their eyes were filled with amazement. It was a man and a woman. The man was wearing a wide-sleeved white Kirin robe and a jade crown on his head. He had a high nose bridge, handsome facial features, and an extraordinary temperament, like a banished immortal. The woman was wearing a blue and white dress. Her silver-white hair was like a waterfall, and her light blue eyes seemed to hide a bright galaxy. She had a sacred and inviolable temperament, which was amazing. When this man and woman stood together, their appearance alone was enough to kill 999,999% of the people in the world. Not to mention that unique temperament. One was ethereal like a banished immortal. The other was cold and sacred like a high and mighty goddess. It was Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu. The Taoists definitely knew Chu Kuangren, but they could not help but be a little puzzled about Lan Yu who was beside him. Who was this woman? Was she from the Black Heaven sect? Why had they never heard of her? What was her relationship with Chu Kuangren? A series of thoughts flashed through their minds. Greetings, senior brother. Greetings, senior brother. May I know who this lady is? Murong Xian was more direct and asked about Lan Yu's background. I met her a few days ago when I left the sect for a walk. She's now my follower, Lanyu. Chu Kuangren did not say much. The others were even more surprised when they heard this. They did not expect Chu Kuangren to have a follower not long after becoming a Taoist of the Black Heaven sect, and it was such an outstanding woman. Thinking of this, Murong Xian and the other men felt a little jealous. Come, sit down. Chu Kuangren sat in the main seat of the hall and chatted with them. These people came to the Towering Heaven Palace for no big reason. They just came to visit and exchange cultivation insights. I see. Taoist Zhuohan revealed a look of realization. Like Chu Kuangren, he also cultivated the sage technique, heavenly amethyst sword art. He had some insights from the exchange with Chu Kuangren just now. He could not help but feel that the supreme Taoist physique was indeed terrifying. He had been cultivating the heavenly amethyst sword art for 10 years, but Chu Kuangren had only been in contact with this sword art for less than a month, but his understanding was already not below his. In some aspects, Chu Kuangren was even more original and sharper than him. What is learned on paper is still shallow. No matter how much we talk, it's better to have a real fight. Zhuohan, may I be so bold as to ask for guidance from you, senior brother? Zhuohan stood up and said with a fist salute. He wanted to see how big the gap was between him and Chu Kuangren's supreme Taoist physique. Chu Kuangren's face showed an expression that he had expected this. He knew it would be like this. What cultivation exchange? Exchanges would always lead to fights. Sigh, what a trap. His eyes had seen through too much. Since junior brother Zhua is in such a good mood, I'll accompany you. What else could he do? Fight. He had just become the chief disciple not long ago. These Taoists called him senior brother, but who knew how much they were convinced? Chapter 12. The Black Heaven Palace occupied a vast area. In addition to the main hall and guest rooms, there was also a practice field. At this time in the practice field, Chu Kuangren and Zhuohan were separated by 10 feet. Senior brother, please. After Zhuohan cupped his hands and bowed, a light flashed in his hand, and a 1-meter-long green sword appeared in his hand. The sword was flowing with light, and it was extremely extraordinary. It was a supreme weapon. Although it was not as good as the sacred sword, it was still extremely rare. In the outside world, it was unknown how many people would fight to the death for a supreme artifact, fighting until their heads bled. This sword is called the Azure Moon, and it is a supreme weapon. Zhuohan said with a proud expression. It was already extremely rare to be recognized by a supreme weapon. After all, in the history of Black Heaven sect, there were not many who were recognized by the sacred sword. Good sword. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly, and then a white light flashed in his hand, and the sacred sword Descendant Self was already in his hand. This sword is called Descendant Self. Looking at the flowing Taoist rhymes and the soaring sword intent of the sacred sword, the corner of Zhuohan's mouth twitched, and the pride on his face suddenly disappeared. What supreme weapon? Compared to the sacred sword, nothing was good. Please. Zhuohan took a deep breath, and then his eyes focused. Spiritual power flowed into the Azure Moon sword in his hand, and a sword chi burst out. Chu Kuangren waved the sacred sword and shattered the sword chi. Although he was a golden core cultivator, his combat strength was no less than a nascent soul cultivator with the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, and his spiritual power was even purer. As a Taoist, Zhuohan's cultivation level had long reached the nascent soul realm, but he still felt pressure fighting Chu Kuangren. The two were only sparring and did not really go all out. Chu Kuangren did not even display his Taoist physique transformation. After about half an hour, Zhuohan took the initiative to stop. Although senior brother's cultivation level is only at the golden core realm, your combat strength is amazing. I admire you. Zhuohan smiled. Junior brother Zhua's strength is also extraordinary. How can I compare to senior brother? The two of them flattered each other. Watching you guys fight makes my hands a little itchy. Jun Yi walked up and smiled. Why, do you want to spar with senior brother too? Zhuohan asked. Jun Yi shook her head. I've already witnessed senior brother's strength. I won't ask for trouble. She looked at Lan Yu and smiled. I'm more interested in Miss Lan's power. Would Miss Lan be willing to teach me a thing or two? The eyes of the other Taoists lit up as well. They were also very interested in the strength of the mysterious woman beside Chu Kuangren. Lan Yu looked at Chu Kuangren, obviously seeking his opinion. Just follow your heart, Chu Kuangren said. Yes. Lan Yu nodded slightly and said to Jun Yi, please. Please. The two girls walked to the center of the practice field. Jun Yi was one of the most powerful Taoists among the 9 great Taoists of the Black Heaven sect. She possessed the feeble water Tao physique and was also a perfected nascent soul cultivator. Her strength was stronger than Zhuohan's. After a burst of blue light, a blue longsword appeared in front of Jun Yi. Judging from the mysterious Taoist rhymes circulating around it, it was at least a supreme artifact. Lan Yu's body also flashed with light. Her skirt disappeared and was replaced by a set of gorgeous silver-white battle armor. What an extraordinary battle armor. Yes, it's at least a supreme artifact. This set of battle armor supreme artifacts is extremely rare. Miss Lan must have an extraordinary background. Several Taoists had a strange look in their eyes. What a beautiful battle armor. Jun Yi's eyes were filled with envy. Lan Yu, who was originally cold and sacred, now wore this silver-white battle armor. She looked even more heroic, like a goddess of war. After being envious, Jun Yi immediately made her move. She made a sword sign with her hand and injected spiritual power into the blue longsword in front of her. The sound of water splashing echoed in the void. The blue longsword shot out several water-based sword chi and slashed at Lan Yu. Lan Yu stood still and let the sword chi hit her body. With a crash, the sword chi shattered, but she did not move an inch. The sword chi could not break through the defense of her battle armor. Jun Yi frowned and continued to inject spiritual power into the blue longsword. The blue light flashed and majestic sword chi gushed out like a flood. Oh, not bad. Lan Yu smiled faintly and faced the attack head-on. She took a step forward, clenched her fist, and punched at the void. The air rumbled loudly from the impact. The void seemed like it was about to explode. The silver-white fist aura exploded with a sense of holiness and majesty, and the surging sword chi was forcefully broken by this punch. The impact that swept out made Jun Yi retreat a few feet. She was shocked. Nascent soul cultivation base. As soon as Lan Yu made her move, her cultivation base was immediately exposed to everyone. Early nascent soul. Although it was only early nascent soul, the power of her punch surprised several Taoists because even a mid or late nascent soul cultivator might not be able to make such a punch. Lan Yu, on the other hand, did it easily. Lan Yu's strength is indeed extraordinary. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Others might not know, but how could he not know that Lan Yu had the holy radiant physique, which was a supreme Taoist physique? In addition, Lan Yu also cultivated sage techniques and supreme techniques, so her combat strength was unparalleled. It was not something an ordinary nascent soul cultivator could compare to. No, even a nascent soul cultivator might not be able to compare to her. Miss Lan's technique is indeed extraordinary. Jun Yi praised from the bottom of her heart. Then she activated her spiritual energy again and activated her supremacy technique. Mysterious Taoist rhymes surrounded her and the sword, forming a surging river in the void. The sound of splashing water reverberated continuously. 3,000 gentle water. Jun Yi let out a soft cry. Suddenly, the surging river rushed towards Lan Yu. A vast and boundless mighty force erupted. This was a type of supreme technique that was specially used for attack. With Jun Yi's perfected nascent soul cultivation base, its power was unparalleled. However, Lan Yu did not retreat. Good timing. Her eyes flashed with a silver-white brilliance, and a sense of holiness spread out, enveloping the heavens and the earth as if a deity had descended. Immovable holy light fist. Lan Yu punched the void of space. A white beam of light shot out and hit the river. The two forces exploded, and the void was almost torn apart. The impact formed a strong wind pressure. Even Murong Xian, Zhuohan, and the other Taoists who were watching the battle could not help but take a few steps back. Lil Bing let out a cry of surprise and was almost sent flying away. At that critical moment, Chu Kuangren reached out and grabbed her waist, then protected her behind him. He activated his spiritual power to form a barrier. Looking at Chu Kuangren's not-so-broad back, Lil Bing felt a warm current flow through her heart, and she felt an unprecedented sense of security. The feeling of being protected was too good. Not to mention Chu Kuangren, who was like an immortal. At that moment, Lil Bing was completely loyal to Chu Kuangren. Jun Yi and Lan Yu continued to fight for a while. Neither of them used their full strength, but Jun Yi realized that even if she did, she would not be able to defeat Lan Yu. In the end, Jun Yi withdrew her azure sword and took the initiative to stop. Lan Yu nodded slightly and changed back into her blue and white dress. Her radiant armor was stored in her body, and it was extremely convenient for her. Birds of a feather flock together. Senior brother's people are indeed outstanding. Jun Yi smiled. Chu Kuangren replied with a smile. Junior sister Jun is right. My junior brothers and sisters are indeed outstanding. Jun Yi was complimenting Lan Yu, but Chu Kuangren's words implied that he treated them as his people. Chapter 13. Nangong Huang is here to visit. Just as Chu Kuangren was having a good time with a few Taoists, an extremely powerful aura suddenly erupted outside the towering heaven palace. The expressions of Murong Xian, Jun Yi, and the others changed slightly. It's actually him. He actually came as well. Naturally, Chu Kuangren could feel the aura as well. The corner of his lips curled up as he chuckled. Nangong Huang, the first Taoist. He's finally here. On the surface, the status of the 9 great Taoists was not high or low, but there were strong and weak ones, and Nangong Huang was the strongest. Although it was not explicitly announced, before Chu Kuangren, Nangong Huang was the elder senior brother of all the disciples in the Black Heaven sect. However, with Chu Kuangren's sudden emergence and Honorable Xianxi's decree, Chu Kuangren's title as the Black Heaven sect's eldest senior brother had been confirmed. It would be strange if Nangong Huang did not come looking for him. Come, let's go meet. Junior brother Nangong. Chu Kuangren laughed. He emphasized the words junior brother Nangong with a hint of playfulness. Outside the towering heaven palace, Nangong Huang stood with his hands behind his back. He was dressed in a purple robe and had a jade-like face. He was extraordinarily handsome and attracted the attention of many female disciples around him. He's senior brother Nangong? So handsome. I heard that senior brother Nangong obtained the recognition of the Holy Sword when he was in the Golden Core realm, and he has the Yin Yang God Eye, which is very extraordinary. He's here to look for Chu Kuangren. Could it be because of his identity as the elder senior brother? Is he taking revenge? The position of elder senior brother should have belonged to senior brother Nangong. Who does that Chu Kuangren think he is? Shh. Be careful with your words. Hey, what are you talking about? Did senior brother Chu offend you? Don't you have any sense of propriety? Be careful that I don't tear your mouth apart. Yo, did Chu Kuangren feed you guys some magic potion? All of them are so loyal to him. Just because he's handsome? As the first Taoist disciple, Nangong Huang naturally had a group of supporters in the Black Heaven sect. Although Chu Kuangren did not show up much for the past few days, he had also gained a group of fans with his good looks. For a time, the two sides quarreled fiercely. After a while, a figure in white walked out of the towering heaven palace. Chu Kuangren appeared with Lan Yu and the others. Their appearance immediately attracted the attention of everyone at the scene. This was especially true for Chu Kuangren, who was walking at the front. Dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe, he stood out from the crowd. His demeanor was ethereal, and his temperament was ethereal, just like an immortal. Everyone's eyes were filled with amazement. Even some of the people who had slandered him before had turned from haters to fans. Is this our new first seat? I love you so much. It's so pretty. Peerless white robe. Even an immortal descending to the mortal world is nothing more than this. There's actually such a man in this world? Wait, look at that girl beside big senior brother. Who is she? Why haven't I heard of such a peerless beauty before? I don't know who I'm envious of when the two of them stand together. Could she be eldest senior brother's Dao companion? Ooh, eldest senior brother has a Dao companion? I'm heartbroken. Everyone discussed animatedly and exclaimed in admiration. Meanwhile, Nangong Huang, who was standing in front of the Taoist palace, had a strange look on his face. He then snorted softly in his heart. It's just a bag of skin, what's the use of it? Junior brother Nangong, since you're here to visit, please come in. Chu Kuangren smiled. However, after hearing the way he addressed him, Nangong Huang frowned slightly and said indifferently, "What did you call me just now?" Junior brother Nangong, is there something wrong? Chu Kuangren blinked and said, "It's not that easy to be my senior brother." Nangong Huang said lightly, the domineering aura on his body growing stronger. "It seems that junior brother is a little dissatisfied with me. I do have some objections. The Black Heaven sect is a sage orthodoxy, and the chief disciple is related to the reputation of the Black Heaven sect. It's not something that just anyone can take. I'm here today to verify if you're qualified." "Then you're here to challenge me?" "Yes." Nangong Huang said bluntly. This was indeed his goal today. He wanted to defeat Chu Kuangren in front of everyone and let everyone see who the real elder senior brother was. Chu Kuangren smiled. "Do you really want to do this? If you're afraid, you can admit defeat." Nangong Huang said indifferently. The Taoists beside Chu Kuangren looked at each other. "Senior brother, Nangong Huang's cultivation base has reached the half-step paradise realm. He's much stronger than ordinary nascent soul realm cultivators. Coupled with his yin-yang god eye, he's no worse than a real paradise realm cultivator." Murong Xian said softly beside Chu Kuangren. Even the Taoists were not optimistic about Chu Kuangren. After all, Chu Kuangren was only in the golden core realm. Compared to Nangong Huang, his cultivation base was far inferior. "Master, let me fight for you," Lan Yu said, staring at Nangong Huang with eyes as sharp as knives, full of hostility. Anyone who offended Chu Kuangren was her enemy. Nangong Huang frowned slightly. He actually felt a sense of oppression from Lan Yu. Who was this woman? "No need, I'm the one you want to challenge, junior brother." Chu Kuangren smiled faintly, then took a few steps forward, walked in front of Nangong Huang, and said with a smile, "Then please advise me, junior brother." He kept calling him junior brother, which made Nangong Huang a little angry. "I'll let you see who the real elder senior brother is." After Nangong Huang finished speaking, a white light flashed in front of him, and a simple and unadorned long sword suddenly appeared. A powerful and cold sword intent burst out. "It's the sacred deep pool rainbow. What a strong sword intent! It's indeed a sacred sword." Everyone could not help but exclaim when the sacred sword appeared. Chu Kuangren also directly took out the descendant self-sword. The sword intents of the two sacred swords collided in the void, and an invisible pressure spread out. Many onlooking disciples felt as if the air around them was filled with countless small swords, cutting their bodies. Waterfall sword art. Nangong Huang held the sacred deep pool rainbow and attacked first. The silver-white sword light flew out like a waterfall across the void, and the vast sword aura enveloped the world and rushed towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren's body suddenly erupted with a terrifying aura. He held the descendant self-sword, and his body exuded a mysterious aura. At this moment, it was as if the sword and the man were one. The union of man and sword. This was the realm that countless swordsmen dreamed of, the unity of man and sword. Chu Kuangren slashed out with his sword, and a domineering purple sword light gushed out majestically, and the silver-white sword light was shattered in an instant. Under this terrifying sword chi, Nangong Huang actually took a few steps back. He looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. How is this possible? He was actually forced back by a single sword. Nascent soul cultivation base. Elder senior brother's cultivation base has reached the nascent soul realm. Murong Xian, Jun Yi, and the others' expressions changed slightly. At this time, the cultivation base that Chu Kuangren displayed was the nascent soul realm. With the spiritual power of the nascent soul realm, the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, and the unity of man and sword, Chu Kuangren was able to force Nangong Huang back with one sword. Fortunately, I got the nascent soul realm cultivation base experience card today, otherwise it would not be so easy to deal with Nangong Huang. Chu Kuangren thought to himself as he felt the surging spiritual power in his body. Just now, he used the nascent soul realm cultivation base experience card to raise his strength to the nascent soul realm. Chapter 14. Nangong Huang looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. One strike. He was forced to retreat with just one strike. He had never expected such a situation to occur. He took a deep breath and looked at Chu Kuangren solemnly. You're much stronger than I thought, but if you think that you can become the eldest senior brother of the Black Heaven sect just like that, then you're wrong. Have a taste of my move. Primordial Golden Light. The spiritual power in Nangong Huang's body surged and a layer of mysterious golden light with Tao patterns appeared on the surface of his body. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Golden Immemorial Light Art. There were 3 sage techniques in the Black Heaven sect. Heavenly Crepe Myrtle Sword Art, 9 Yang Divine Art, Primordial Golden Light Art. Among them, the Primordial Golden Light technique allowed one to master a divine power called the Primordial Golden Light. This divine power could be used for both offense and defense. It was extremely mysterious. Nangong Huang's body was covered in golden light, and he held the deep rainbow sacred sword in his hand. His aura was extremely majestic. He suddenly slashed out with his sword, and the golden light on the surface of his body exploded. The golden light enveloped the sword Qi and slashed towards Chu Kuangren. Human Mountain Stamp. Chu Kuangren laughed out loud. Mysterious Taoist rhymes flowed around his body, and the surrounding earth Qi whistled. His hands formed a mysterious hand seal, and his spiritual power gushed out, transforming into an ancient divine mountain. The terrifying divine mountain directly smashed into the golden sword light. With a loud explosion, the void shook. The dissipating energy smashed holes and sword marks on the ground. Chu Kuangren and Nangong Huang were the first to bear the brunt of the attack. What technique is this? Nangong Huang, who had seen the human mountain stamp for the first time, felt his heart palpitate. However, in the next moment, Chu Kuangren had already arrived beside him. Surges of heaven yellow strength Qi rolled in his palms as he struck out the human mountain stamp once again. The terrifying impact caused the golden light on Nangong Huang's body to explode, and the bones in his body made cracking sounds. Nangong Huang spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, stood in front of Nangong Huang with his hands behind his back. He was dressed in a peerless white robe, and his demeanor was mesmerizing. He was like a high and mighty god. So strong. The primordial golden light was destroyed. For so many years, apart from those famous cultivators, even Taoist children have been unable to break senior brother Nangong's golden light. I can't believe Chu Kuangren has become so powerful. Her graceful bearing is truly fascinating. Chu Kuangren stood not far away from Nangong Huang and smiled. Junior brother Nangong, this is a little different from what I expected. What do you mean? Not as good as I thought. You? Nangong Huang's face darkened. He was furious. The spiritual energy inside his body circulated crazily, and he pushed it to the extreme. His eyes suddenly emitted blinding light, and a mysterious Taoist rhyme permeated the air. Chu Kuangren, take my strongest attack. Yin Yang Divine Light. The Yin Yang Divine Light was a divine ability of the Yin Yang God Pupil. The divine light evolved from the Yin Yang creation Tao and was extremely mysterious. If it was used to attack an enemy, even a cultivator with a higher realm than Nangong Huang would have a hard time resisting it. Chu Kuangren only saw black and white divine light swirling in Nangong Huang's eyes before it formed a vortex that emitted a black and white divine light. A surge of Yin and Yang will suddenly shrouded him. Sword of the Heavens. Chu Kuangren was as still as a mountain. A majestic sword intent suddenly erupted, and a purple brilliance soared into the sky. It evolved into a supreme sword of the heavens above his head and turned into a nine-hole sword of the heavens. Chu Kuangren's combat strength rose again when the Taoist physique transformation appeared. He held the Descendant Self-Sword and suddenly slashed towards the black and white divine light. The unity of man and sword. The domineering purple sword light violently collided with the yin-yang divine light, and the terrifying impact caused the surrounding void to constantly tremble. It seemed like it was about to collapse. Gradually, the yin-yang divine light was eroded by the sword light. The yin-yang god pupil was indeed one of the top 3,000 physiques, but it was far inferior to a supreme Taoist physique like the exquisite nine orifices sword heart. The sword of the heavens broke the yin-yang divine light. Nangong Huang was once again blasted back dozens of feet by the sword light. The golden light on his body was directly torn apart when it came into contact with the sword qi. The sword qi penetrated his body like countless small needles, as if it wanted to crush his flesh and blood. This is a supreme Taoist physique. Nangong Huang's pupils shrank, and his face trembled in shock. Nine Heaven Sword Prison. At this time, he heard Chu Kuangren shout again. Overwhelming sword qi poured out of his body, covering everything within a radius of thousands of feet. The boundless sword intent covered the sky and the earth. It was like a prison. The second major transformation of the exquisite nine orifices sword heart, nine heaven sword prison. Nangong Huang felt the sword qi around him, and his face was a little pale. He, who had been injured repeatedly, was now powerless against this transformation. But it was not over. Green Lotus Sword Song. The sky full of sword qi shuttled under Chu Kuangren's feet, intertwining and transforming into a huge green lotus. The lotus had 36 petals, and each petal had mysterious patterns, as if it was deducing the essence of the sword. Waves of sword sounds echoed in the void, triggering the thousands of swords in the Black Heaven sect. The distant sword mountain seemed to be summoned and let out a shocking sword cry. The sword of the heavens above Chu Kuangren's head, and he stepped on the 36th sword qi green lotus. He opened the nine heaven sword prison, and the three major Taoist physique transformations were all activated. He walked towards Nangong Huang step by step, like a peerless sword immortal. Countless disciples looked at this scene and were extremely shocked. Nangong Huang, who was facing the pressure of the three major transformations, was already trembling. This is impossible. How can he be so powerful? Nangong Huang's left and right eyes flashed with a black and a white divine light, trying to activate the yin-yang god eye to resist the three major Taoist physique transformations. But it was completely useless. His eyes were extremely sore, and he could not use the divine light at all. Among the 3,000 physiques in the world, the exquisite nine orifices sword heart was ranked in the top 10 supreme Taoist physiques, and the yin-yang god eye could not be compared to it at all. Nangong Huang only now knew how big the gap between the two was. Gulp. Murong Xian, who was not far away, swallowed his saliva. Not long ago, Chu Kuangren only used the Sword of the Heavens transformation to deal with him at Sword Mountain, but he could already trigger the sword intent of Sword Mountain swords for his own use. Now that Chu Kuangren had activated all three major transformations, if this place was also at Sword Mountain, how terrifying would it be? Murong Xian did not dare to imagine. But he was even more in awe of Chu Kuangren. It was the same for the other Taoists. The surrounding disciples looked at Chu Kuangren, who was like a peerless sword deity, and in their hearts, they truly recognized him as the elder senior brother. No wonder the sect leader issued a decree to make Chu Kuangren the lead elder senior brother. He really does have this kind of talent. I'm really convinced. Who can compare to such a peerless beauty? I'm afraid there are not many Sky Prides in the entire Azure Dragon domain who can compete with Elder's senior brother. Not to mention the Azure Dragon domain, even if you look at the entire Firmament Star, Elder's senior brother's talent is definitely one of the best. The surrounding disciples were talking about it, and they were sincerely convinced by Chu Kuangren. It was especially so for the young female disciples. When they saw Chu Kuangren's godly appearance, their beautiful eyes lit up and they could not help but yearn for him. No matter what others say, he is my elder senior brother. Oh my God, how can he be so good-looking? He's handsome and strong, it's simply irresistible. Chapter 15. The three Taoist physique transformations were activated at the same time, and mysterious Taoist rhymes surrounded Chu Kuangren's body. Coupled with his banished immortal temperament, he was like a peerless sword immortal at this time, and the surrounding disciples were all convinced. In the distance, inside the longevity hall, Honorable Xianxia suddenly opened his eyes, and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. A supreme Taoist physique is indeed a supreme Taoist physique, easily crushing the combat power of the same realm. My Black Heaven sect is on the rise. The divine predictor said that the reopening of the emperor's path in this world will break the shackles of the ancient emperor. Kuangren has a supreme Taoist physique, and he will definitely compete for the throne of this world. Kuangren, don't let me down. Honorable Xianxia whispered softly, his eyes filled with endless hope. The rest of the higher-ups in the Black Heaven sect also noticed the Taoist rhymes of Chu Kuangren's Taoist physique, and similarly, their hearts also gave birth to hope. Towering Heaven Palace. Chu Kuangren displayed the three Taoist physique transformations, slowly walked in front of Nangong Huang, and said lightly, I'll call you junior brother, are you willing to accept? Nangong Huang's expression was uncertain, and his eyes were full of unwillingness. However, in front of the current Chu Kuangren, he did not even have the ability to resist, let alone compete with him for the position of lead senior brother. After a moment of silence, Nangong Huang lowered his proud head and said respectfully, Nangong. Greetings, elder senior brother. With one sentence, the strongest Taoist of the Black Heaven sect declared his surrender. Countless disciples were shocked. Even Nangong Huang was defeated. At this time, no one questioned Chu Kuangren's identity. At this moment, he was the lead senior brother of the Black Heaven sect. Greetings, junior brother Nangong. Chu Kuangren smiled faintly, and he put away the three Taoist physique transformations. The boundless pressure of the sword gradually dissipated, and the sword cry of the distant Black Heaven Sword Mountain also disappeared, returning to calmness. Junior brother, please come in for a chat. After subduing Nangong Huang with force, Chu Kuangren invited him to follow him into the Taoist palace. He was gentle and polite. As soon as Nangong Huang stepped into the Tao palace, he was also shocked by the abundant spiritual energy inside. The Tao palace he was in was also one of the best cultivation places in the Black Heaven sect, but it was still far from the towering Heaven Tao palace. The few of them discussed the way of cultivation in the Holy Ji palace. With Nangong Huang's participation, the discussion lasted for a full day and night. After the crowd had left, Chu Kuangren stretched lazily and yawned. These people sure are talkative. I'm so tired. Lil Bing brought him a cup of tea. Thank you. Young master is too polite. After Chu Kuangren took a sip of his tea, he said to the two ladies, How was it? You guys have been listening for so long. Did you guys learn anything? I've benefited a lot. Lil Bing nodded and said. Her face was so excited that some color appeared on her face. These Taoists were all the top young cultivators of their generation. Their cultivation experience was no less than that of some cultivators who had been cultivating for hundreds of years. Lil Bing, who was listening, gained a lot from their discussion. Lil Bing even felt that if she went into closed-door cultivation now, she could break through to the Golden Core realm in minutes. Most of the people in the Black Heaven sect who could reach the Golden Core realm were true disciples, and Lil Bing was just an outer sect disciple. Not bad. Lan Yu nodded slightly. Although Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the others had a different direction of cultivation from her, there were still many things that could be used for reference. It would also be helpful for her cultivation. That's good. Chu Kuangren nodded. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. He also gained some inspiration from this exchange. The most important thing was that he felt that he lacked offensive methods. He had the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, so of course, he mainly cultivated sword Dao at this stage. However, he knew very few sword Dao techniques. The heavenly crepe myrtle sword art mainly cultivated the foundation and had no moves to deal with the enemy. The rest of the moves were only top-grade techniques. Compared to the waterfall sword art and the heavenly sun sword art, they were much worse. Although the 3 Taoist physique transformations could make up for it, transformations were still transformations. They were still different from a proper cultivation technique. Although the human mountain stamp is powerful, it is not a real sword Dao technique after all. It can't maximize the effect of the Taoist physique. No matter what, I have to learn a sword Dao supreme technique. Chu Kuangren murmured. Just as he was thinking, Honorable Xianxi's voice sounded in his ears. Kuangren, come here. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised, and then he told Lan Yu and Lil Bing. Inside the longevity hall, Honorable Xianxi was sitting on a futon. After sensing Chu Kuangren's arrival, he turned to look at him with a gratified look in his eyes. When I made you the chief disciple, I knew that Nangong Huang and the other Taoists would not easily acknowledge you. I just didn't expect you to convince them in just a few days. It's gratifying. Chu Kuangren rolled his eyes in his heart. He guessed that when he was troubled by a few Taoists, this cheap honorable master was probably watching the show in the dark and did not help him. Honorable master is clever. However, he also knew that the other party was testing him, so he did not care and flattered him. Do you have any doubts about your cultivation these days? Chu Kuangren pondered for a moment before he told her about his lack of offensive techniques. Honorable Xianxi smiled faintly. That's easy. There are many sword Dao techniques in the Black Heaven Sect's library. Take this jade token and you can look at them at will. He took out an ancient jade token and handed it to Chu Kuangren, then said, Kuangren, this is a world of great competition. You have the hope of the Black Heaven Sect on you, so you have to work hard. I will not let you down, Honorable Master. Honorable Xianxi encouraged him a few more words. Then, Chu Kuangren left the longevity hall. The library was an important place in the Black Heaven Sect. In addition to all kinds of cultivation techniques, there were also all kinds of strange and all-encompassing records. The person in charge of the library was an old man with white eyebrows. This person was a high-level elder of the Black Heaven Sect, ranked 7th, and had an extraordinary cultivation base. After seeing Chu Kuangren, the 7th elder's eyes lit up and he greeted him. Oh, what brings you here, chief disciple? Chu Kuangren was not only the chief disciple of the Black Heaven Sect, but also a supreme Taoist physique. He was the key to the Black Heaven Sect's fight for the throne of this world. Even the high-level elders did not dare to neglect his status. Greetings, 7th elder. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. I came here to find some sword Dao cultivation techniques. The cultivation techniques of the Black Heaven Sect are on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Chief disciple can look at them on his own, then I will not disturb you. 7th elder, go do your own things. The library was divided into 5 floors. The first floor was a variety of biographies, humanities, geography, and astronomy books. The real cultivation techniques were on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The 4th floor was a variety of rare supreme techniques that only true disciples were qualified to read. The 5th floor had the least books, but it was also the most important. It was the foundation of the Black Heaven Sect. In addition to the sect leader, even Taoists had to go through the procedures and obtain approval before they could enter. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.